Well, a tremendous Tuesday afternoon. How are you? And welcome to the Jason Gregor Show, the Tuesday edition, brought to you as always by PlayAlberta.ca. And tonight could be your night. Lotto Max, $70 million and 10 Max Millions up for grabs. Get your tickets at PlayAlberta.ca. Alberta's only regulated online gambling website where 100% of the revenue stays right here in the province. And it's also a night where, the Detroit Red Wings. Right now, the Red Wings, baby, they just keep finding ways to win. They're in Montreal to take on the Canadiens. Meanwhile, you have the Capitals taking on the Philadelphia Flyers in a huge game. As we are down to the final few days. The East, of course, will be done on Wednesday. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, by the time they play, it might not matter. Their game might be meaningless because the Islanders clinched a playoff spot last night. And the Capitals, if they win tonight, they're in. No one can catch them. But if the Philadelphia Flyers are victorious, then you know what? The Pittsburgh game becomes very meaningful. Now, if Detroit wins, though, Pittsburgh, you're out. So there's lots happening tonight. If you are waiting, you want to get in the spirit, because trust me, that Washington-Philly game is like a playoff game. The Detroit-Montreal game, well, it isn't for Montreal, but it is for the Red Wings. And if you're Montreal, you lost last night, you gave up a 4-1 lead, you'd think you want to bounce back. So it should be fun. Speaking of fun, how many of you enjoyed last night's game? If you were at the rink, something tells me you had a pretty good time. You don't see 9 goals very often for any NHL team. Never mind the Edmonton Oilers. It's been a while since the Oilers scored 9 goals in a game, and really they had 9 goals in the first 2 periods, for goodness sakes. They called off the Dogs, which is unfortunate because they were on pace to tie the franchise mark, which is 13 goals, which has happened twice. It would have been a hell of an accomplishment. But nonetheless, it was an entertaining game if you like offense. The Oilers, of course, 13s happened twice, the last time being in 1985. The last time the Oilers, prior to last night, 9 goals has happened fairly frequently. In the Oilers' history, I think as a franchise, they've scored 9 goals or more 54. I got to double check. I think it's 54 times. So obviously it's been, it's something that has happened a few times, but not very often. So it was nice to see. The San Jose Sharks, Oilers fans, you were probably watching that game being like, I kind of remember what this is like. The last time the Oilers actually scored 9 in a game was in against the Chicago Blackhawks, 2011. Remember that game? That was a Sam Gagner 8-point night game, was it not? Pretty sure it was, if my memory's correct. I thought that's when he had. Didn't he have the 9 points when he had the 8 games, or maybe not? No, actually no. When he had 8 points, he had. They only had 8 goals. He was in on all of them, so it wasn't even that game. Jeez, they spanked the Hawks a few times. The last road game where the Oilers scored 9 or more goals, Conman, do you remember the last road game where the Oilers scored 9 or more goals? You were a young lad.
I was going to say, was I alive for this?
Yes, you were.
I do not remember this, no.
10-1, November 26th, Calgary. So there you have it. But the Oilers, 9 goals. It doesn't happen very often. And I wish they would have went to double digits. Just, you know what? Something a little bit more juicy about the double digits. The Oilers have scored 10 goals in a game 23 times, but none since 1996. That was the last time. That was, of course, the 10-1 game against the Flames. And I think any other game, I'm looking it up now, I think that's the only time the Oilers have scored 10 goals in a game outside of the 1980s. So for many of you youngsters, and not even that young, heck, you're in your 40s. You probably don't remember the last time the Oilers scored a 10 spot. So could have seen it last night. Now, I wasn't at the game because I had fathering duties, which is great. But I'm curious, did they chant "We want 10" in the crowd last night? I know they've done it in the past. Did they do it last night? So we'll see. But the Oilers, you know what? Right from the get-go, Connor McDavid comes out in his first shift, blows the doors off, wheels by the Sharks. Most of us thought for a second that that's when he had got to the 100 assist mark. It did not. It was crazy that Connor McDavid needed to get on the 9th goal of the game before he gets an assist. That's probably the best thing about the game last night. The Oilers had 9 goals, and McDavid had 1 point in the first 8. 8 other guys, I think, had multi-point games up until the point where McDavid assisted on Hyman's goal. Warren Foegele, Dylan Holloway, Adam Henrique, Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci. What the hell is going on with Cody Ceci? Cody Ceci went 126 games without a goal, and now he's got 5 in his last 29 games. In his last 6 games, Cody Ceci, when he's on the ice, the Oilers have outscored the opposition 11-1. Now, I know the people, because there's a select group, even when Ceci and Nurse play well, they're like, but. It's the worst type of analysis ever. We talked about it for months. I wrote articles about Darnell Nurse got to play better. And guess what? Him and Ceci, after the Dallas debacle, have played much better. Much better. I think Nurse has been on the ice. What is it? It might be 11-2 or 12-2 for him. Ceci's 11-1. What more do you want? Well, they're playing 1 less minute a game versus elite players. Oh my goodness. Throw them out. Get rid of them. They're terrible because that 1 less minute a game is are the Oilers winning? Are they on the ice outscoring the opposition? Yeah, but. Oh, it's such a terrible way to now. Be happy. They're playing well. And I said it on the show. If the Oilers are going to go deep in the playoffs, that defense pair has to play well. I assume Ekholm and Bouchard are going to play well. Right? Now they have an advantage because they play a lot with McDavid, as they should. But still, when I look at keys to why the Oilers can have success in the playoffs, I would debate, and I'm outside of the captain obvious, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, of course, they got to play well. I'm talking guys who need to step up if you're going to win. I don't think there's anybody more than Nurse and Ceci. They have to play well. If they do, the Oilers will go deep because I'm expecting their first pair to play well. And I'm expecting McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman to do their thing. But after that, those two, probably Evander Kane, are guys you're like, hey, they step up and play well, the Oilers can go deep. No question in my mind. Obviously, Stuart Skinner, goaltender's got to be solid. Right? Wasn't tested a bunch last night. Last night's a tough game for a goalie. You're 3-0 after the first 10 minutes. It's almost like they're on cruise control a little bit. It's 5-1 at one point. The game's really out of reach. The Sharks get a late one just to get some points on the board for some of their players. But you know what? Solid game. So now the Oilers, tonight's game for the Vancouver Canucks, if they beat the Calgary Flames, or even if they lose in overtime or a shootout, then Vancouver clinches first place. Because even if the Oilers win their final 2 games and Vancouver loses and they all end up with 108 points, Vancouver has the tiebreaker because they have more regulation wins. So the only way Edmonton beats Vancouver is they have to beat Arizona and Colorado, and Vancouver has to lose in regulation to both Calgary, which is at home tonight in Vancouver, and then Thursday in Winnipeg. And the Thursday game for the Jets might not mean anything for Winnipeg, because if the Jets win or get a point tonight, then the Jets secure second place in the Central Division. So tonight, you'll have a much better sense if the Wednesday and Thursday games mean anything. Like I've said all along, the Oilers, they can win the Stanley Cup finishing in second place. I think it'd be very hard to win the Cup if Connor McDavid wasn't playing. That's why resting him for 3 games made perfect sense. It's why I'd be surprised, regardless of the outcome, that McDavid plays both of these games. Now, maybe he'll want to. I'm sure he'll want to, but we'll see. Philip Broberg, expect him to be officially recalled by the Oilers tomorrow. That means that'd be 2 days on the cap. They might call someone else up as well, because crunch the numbers, I think they have the room to do that as well. So, you know what? They could, they could call up, well, they might be able to call up 3 or 4 guys, right? As long as you fit under the cap. Doesn't really matter at this point. If you want to rest the whole line, they could do it. So we'll see what they do. It's obviously close coming from Bakersfield up there. Now, the Condors obviously have some games. They've clinched a playoff spot. Their regular season ends this weekend. But I think the NHL franchise is still your number one priority. And so if they, by chance, I'm looking at the schedule for the Condors, and they play what's the date today? The 16th. So yeah, they play tomorrow. So Broberg, obviously they're at home. They could finish a little higher, so it does matter. And then they play Friday, Saturday. So either way, you can call up a few guys. Sam Gagner if you want. Maybe they want Raphael Lavoie to stay down there and play. We'll see. But either way, those are some options. Hey, Gregor, do you think Holloway should get some playoff games? He's a great skater and seems to be turning a corner. I would think the coaching staff will slot him in eventually. Well, Trev, like I've said, who do you take out in your top 9? Because I'm telling you, they're not taking out Matthias Janmark. I'd be very surprised if they do. They like his penalty kill. They like what he does on the fourth line. He's super responsible defensively. So who are you taking out of your top 9 to get Dylan Holloway in? Are you taking out Warren Foegele, who's having a career year, 19 goals? Probably not. Are you taking out Adam Henrique? He's a centerman. He can win faceoffs. He kills penalties, and he can play wing. Smart player. I don't think he's coming out. Kane, no. Nugent Hopkins, no. Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, no. McLeod, no. So then that leaves Corey Perry. So it's a good question, but I don't know if Holloway, like I always ask, for people who want Holloway to play, fine. Tell me who's coming out of your top 9. Who's coming out? Right? I don't know who you think, so let me know. And then we'd probably have a discussion on it. Hey, guys, I think Corey Perry's a dark horse difference maker. From Mike. I don't think he's going to play enough. Could he score a few key goals? Yes. But, like Nurse and Cease are going to play 20 minutes. Right? Like they're going to impact the game. Corey Perry's probably going to play 12, 13 minutes. And it still can be impactful, don't get me wrong. But Nurse and Cece will have more opportunity to impact the game negatively or positively. And obviously the Oilers want it to be in more of a positive fashion. Hey, Greg's, I was there. They did chant from Nogi. All right. Smart. Why wouldn't you? Hey, Gregor, why can't they take McLeod out for Holloway? Does Dylan Holloway play in center right now? You have to understand, Large Varva. It's the playoffs. You don't go into the playoffs and ask a guy who hasn't played center all year at the NHL to say, hey, now you're going to play center. And they they love McLeod's speed down the middle. McLeod kills penalties. He's on their second unit power play. He plays 5-on-5. I think there's zero chance or reason to take Ryan McLeod out of the lineup. Right? Not everything is just about goals. So I'd be surprised if they do that. Hey, Gregor, it's a shame you're not a lawyer. You sure know how to make excuses. From Eden. What excuse did I make, Eden? Fill me in on the great insight. I'm not sure what excuse you heard. He then said, move Nugent Hopkins or Henrique to the fourth line. The irony is not lost on me. Hey, Gregor, you're making excuses. Oh, by the way, they should play Nugent Hopkins or Adam Henrique on the fourth line. My goodness. That's example number 9004 as to why you're not an NHL coach. Adam Henrique, who has 24 goals in the season, is going to play in your fourth line. So you can call up a rookie kid? Yeah. Come on, people. Hey, guys, fans are looking at it wrong. It's a good thing we have Holloway ready. If anyone goes down, absolutely great depth. Finally, from Dean. Dean, bang on. I agree with you. 100%. Right? What this means is the Oilers now have legit competition for somebody in their top 9. Because prior to Holloway coming up, the competition was really amongst Brown, Carrick, and Ryan. And they were rotating in. And it's mainly been Carrick and Ryan lately. Right? That was really it. There wasn't much other internal competition. Now there's legit internal competition that says, hey, here's a guy we have who's knocking on the door. Now, the interesting question I have for the Oilers is, so if Dylan Holloway, and the Oilers might not play until Monday now, the 21st. I think it might be leaning, like that's what they've wanted. We've said it all along. That's what they've wanted. The NHL was thinking maybe the 20th, but, the Oilers could get their wish, which means they'd have Friday, Saturday, Sunday between games. A little extra rest after playing 5 games in 7 days. So they start on the 21st. The AHL season wraps up this weekend. Then they'll start their playoffs. Do you want Dylan Holloway as your extra forward here for depth purposes, or do you go play him in the minors in the AHL playoffs where he can be a go-to guy, great experience? Is there a risk of injury? Sure, but there's a risk of injury all the time. So I don't know if I would necessarily factor that in, but I wonder what they do there. To me, that's the interesting part about what they would consider with Dylan Holloway. If he's not in your regular lineup, do you then just get him down playing games in Bakersfield? Because they might be out in the first round, but you still get him some games in, right? Because the Oilers, if they play Monday, then they play Wednesday, then they play Friday, so that there'd be 2 days. You could even have him practice here for a game or two, for a day or two if you wanted. So, hey, Gregor, why do you pigeonhole Holloway in your top 9? It's playoffs. Put him on the 4th line if someone goes down. Bob's your uncle. Again, look at the allocation of minutes. He doesn't kill penalties. So you're going to have Dylan Holloway playing your 4th line when he doesn't kill penalties. How many minutes does your 4th line get when it's not a 9-2 blowout? They probably get about 10 to 11. And that's because Brown and Carrick and Ryan and Janmark all kill penalties. Usually they'll get 2 minutes a game there, depending on how many power plays the opposition has. But Holloway, you're not going to put Holloway in the playoffs on the penalty kill when he hasn't done it all year long. Like, that would be ridiculous decision by a coach. So now you're going to play him on your 4th line, ask him to contribute when he's going to be sitting for long stretches. Like, you're not putting him in a situation to succeed, right? And I've talked to Chris Knobloch about it. Chris Knobloch is very open. He's even said, like, Holloway's here. He's a top 9 guy, or he's not on your 4th line because it just doesn't make sense in how they use. Now, next season, if he kills penalties all year long, it's a totally different conversation. But I think he'll be in your top 9. Mark it down. He'll be in your top 9 to start the season and on the penalty kill. Hey, boys, if the Oilers are up in a series and Kane's injury is bugging him, then you could give him a rest. Possibly. But I'm telling you, it's very rare that you see players rest games in the playoffs. I got to be, basically, it's like, I can't play. We've judged you and deemed you that you cannot help us because your injury is too severe. And that's normally what it is. Guys banged up, then they will they let him play. So coming up on the show today, Steve Ellis will join us from Daily Faceoff. Paul Sir. Hey, how about did you know Connor Halley? Local Edmonton product. I've been watching the NBA games and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's who I think it is. I looked it up today. Do you know the Edmonton product who's on the Boston Celtics coaching staff? Talk about that.
I do, yes.
Dave McCarthy will be by. Struddy, Spec, DVD. Man, we got a loaded show for you. 833-401-1440. A lot of text coming in our inbox, and we'll return with Ellis. We are talking about if there is one junior team that you should watch. I think there's one that you could watch. Tell you why next on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Try the
We continue on. Welcome back. It's Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Man, we had another great fitting day today. So a big shout out to the fellas again, Andy and Brendan and Dustin and Justin, who fit all the grads. We had 52 in there today. Thanks everybody out there for donating. We had kids from Ross Shep and Jasper Place, Harry Ainley, Emmy Lazert, Ann Anderson. What am I missing? Did I say Jasper Place? St. Andre Bassett. I didn't even like Ann Anderson's like a new school in the South Side that I hadn't heard of. Pretty big school too. They got like 2,000 kids. Jeez, man, some of these schools are massive. Like now, granted, I probably have a skewed viewpoint of the high school. I went to J.H. Picard, and our high school split in after grade 11. So even then, it wasn't super huge. It was probably like 300 kids. Then I went down. My graduating class in grade 12 was a whopping 39. So it was much more intimate. I knew everybody, right? Like we literally had a graduation where I was class historian. You talk about every kid that they basically got to chirp him. It was unreal. So it's a lot of fun. But so yeah, shout out to them and everybody who's donated. The kids are pretty fired up. I will say for everybody who donates, we always surprise the kids because when they show up, like they know they're getting the soup, but they don't know it's theirs to keep and tailored and everything. And it's priceless to see the look on their face and just the pride factor and how excited they get knowing that it's going to be a suit of their own for a lot of kids who don't necessarily have the best support system around them. It's people who can really use it. So for those of you I know who buy tickets and where the money goes to Gregor's grads and stuff, I thank you for it. And trust me, when you go to the game and you're having fun, I hope you can cheers yourself because you made the day and you really made a year. And in some cases, an opportunity for someone to get a job. They have a job interview. Now they have a suit. They just feel more presentable and gives them a little confidence. So it's awesome, awesome stuff. So thank you very much. Now let's get to around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. And of course, there's always the daily deals. You love all that. But did you know that every time you purchase a Big Mac or a McChicken, maybe fries, milkshake, portion of that goes to the Ronald McDonald Health. So you can eat your chicken finger, dip it in the barbecue sauce, and be like, hey, look at me. I'm helping out because you never know. Hopefully you never have to. But when you have to use the Ronald McDonald House, man, it is a lifesaver for those families when your kids are in the stallers. So big shout out to all the local McDonald's who are helping keeping Ronald McDonald House alive and are looking to expand it because the need, sadly, keeps growing. Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff joins us. Stephen, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. And you were talking about graduation, like high school graduation size. And I think my entire row at my high school graduation, I didn't know a single person in there because we had like 500 people in my graduating class. So it was an experience.
Oh yeah, I would think so. Yeah, it's very different where because some people, oh yeah, I'm not really sure, but for me, man, I loved it. I knew everybody. It was loads of fun. So I think it definitely depends on your high school situation. Now,
I was watching a hockey game, by the way, during my graduation. I was watching, if I'm correct, it was something in Europe. I want to say it was like a Finnish Division 2 game, but I was watching that during my grad. And
on your phone. Yeah, see, we graduated in different eras, buddy. There was no cell phone for me when I was graduating.
2014.
Yeah, well, yeah, a little bit earlier for me. I do want to talk about, we've talked a lot about the playoffs, but of course there's for the team, San Jose, who was in Edmonton last night. They've obviously secured the number one spot and they look like a team who could definitely use the number one pick. But when I look at a team right now, like if there was one junior team that I would want to watch more than any other junior team live, if I'm a Prospects fan, I'm going to take the Medicine Hat Tigers because you got Caden Lindstrom, who unfortunately is being hurt this year, but man, he's got 27 goals in 32 games. He's an absolute beast of a kid. Like he's huge and he's only going to get bigger and stronger. And then you've got Gavin McKenna, for goodness sakes, who's, it's not even his draft year. He just turned 6. He's a late birthday. He's not even going to get drafted for 2 more years. Like that, man, they got some really high-end talent. Like those two next year playing together full time, Stephen, like I'm very curious to see what numbers they could put up.
It's funny when you look at like junior hockey teams and you see this all the talent that this group has. Because yeah, you mentioned McKenna, Caden Lindstrom, Andrew Basha could be a first-round pick. Like, this team's got so much talent, and then they got knocked out of the playoffs. They're done, and
Yeah.
I'm excited because I'm going to the U18s in Finland next week, and I'll be able to see Gavin McKenna up close for the first time. And Lidstrom's kind of a special beast, being 6'5" and moving as well as he does.
Yep.
And then McKenna's got the pure skill, and Basha's got kind of the everything you're looking for in a puck carrier. So that's a good group, and that's as long as they're not trading guys away, as long as they're there for as long as they can, and I expect Lidstrom to be there at least one more year. Next year, I'm not betting against them.
Oh God, no, they should be an absolute force next season. So I want to get your thoughts on some of the other guys. Like, we've talked a lot about Macklin Celebrini. He's had an unreal year, the Hobey Baker winner. He's a really young guy. Steve, like, how good is Celebrini? I know you have followed, prospects maybe better than most people. Like, if people knew how many games you watch, it's crazy. But like, when you look at Celebrini, I know it's always unfair to compare, but who does he remind you of recent guys?
It's the best comparison I could probably give you is Sidney Crosby, who's obviously one of the best players in the world. I think it's just more from a style perspective.
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of compared him to Jonathan Toews earlier in his college career, and then people were saying, okay, like, no, he's a lot better at the same age. And I think he actually doubled what Jonathan Toews did offensively as a 17-year-old player in college. And he became the first 17-year-old to win the Hobey Baker. Like, that's an unbelievable accomplishment, because he had to go out there and beat Cutter Gauthier, Jason Blake's son, who just had a fantastic year in North Dakota. And there was a lot of other good players. Like Will Smith led the country in scoring, and he didn't even get a finalist vote there. So Celebrini going out there and beating everybody kind of shows how good he is, because you look at what Bedard is able to do, and you see, okay, the offense is there, the defense isn't. Celebrini is everywhere. He's got the offense, he's got the defense. He's a bit bigger too. He's willing to throw some hits, and there's just so much skill there. I think if you're comparing those two together, Bedard and Celebrini, Bedard's the one with the more skill at the puck, but Celebrini's more well-rounded. I'd still pick Bedard because I think that upside is tremendous, like Connor McDavid level upside. We'll see what happens there down the line. With Celebrini, like, I think he's not getting enough attention from the masses here. And I don't know if it's maybe because the teams that are in the running for him are not as big of a market as, when Montreal had the first pick 2 years ago, and they picked Slafkovsky. But Celebrini is special. And if you don't follow prospects closely, you probably think you hear that a lot. But the way that people are describing Celebrini, you don't hear it that way, because guys are not as well-rounded, as crafty, as skilled as he is.
Yeah, like Celebrini, like, I honestly, like, I kind of feel like maybe it's because it's after Bedard that people are kind of sleeping on how good he could be. Like, I think this is a really important draft lottery. Now, he might go to the, San Jose, where it's going to be an uphill battle for quite some time there. But, they do have Will Smith, who declared he's not going to San Jose. I actually think it's a really smart decision. He's going to go back to college for another year. I think just allows him to mature even more. But if all of a sudden they got William Smith and then you got Celebrini, and I don't think they're going to be that good, like, they could get another really good player next year that, maybe at least you'd have some young guys moving forward in San Jose with some legit opportunities.
Yeah, like, if they do get Celebrini and Smith, we know that he's not going back. That makes that pretty interesting, because if Smith's there, I think they're a lot better team than they would be, because I do think Smith's ready for the NHL. But there's a lot of personal motivation to stay back in college, where, Boston College was the favorite to win the NCAA championship. They didn't. They're going to be bringing back that same top line. Then James Hagen's a top 2025 prospect. He's going to be there. Jacob Fowler, one of the best goalies in the country. They're going to be a stacked team again, and he's got a chance to win the World Juniors and go and win the national championship, and maybe even play at the World Championship a few months later. So a lot of excitement there. But with the Sharks, they do have a decent prospect pool. I'm not talking top 5. I think they're top 10, a little lower though. Celebrini going in there, being their number one center, would be huge. Then you got Will Smith, you got William Eklund, you've got some good young defensemen kind of in the waiting. I think the big question is their goaltending. We saw last night, goaltending was not a strength of theirs. And I got to say, though, that was a wildly entertaining game between San Jose and Edmonton, but maybe for all the wrong reasons. But in terms of just that, I think that the Sharks are going to be a good team. They're just they're still in the very early stages. Like Chicago is much farther down in there. Like I'd be not shocked if they're competing for a playoff spot in the next 2 years. San Jose, I'm thinking more like 4 and 5. But when the way they're building this team and the pieces they're putting together, I do like where they're going.
Yeah. Stephen Ellis joins us here on Sports 1440. They really got to get some defense there because, man, their defense is brutal in San Jose. There's no question about that. Now, what about a guy like Demidov? Ivan Demidov, you know what, smaller, playing an SKA. How good is this guy going to be? And, you know, does he have a contract that it's going to keep him in Russia for a few years?
I believe he's also offhand. I believe he's a 2026, just like Matvei Michkov last year. But obviously, that's a little shorter of a distance compared to when Michkov was drafted last year. With Demidov, the numbers he was putting up in the Russian junior ranks have like no one's ever done that before. Kucherov did and Kaprizov did, and like some unbelievable numbers, 2 points per game basically all year long. He had to deal with some injuries, and at the beginning of the year, like in the preseason, he was looking awesome, like one of the best SKA St. Petersburg players during the preseason. And then he gets sent down to the minors or technically junior level. And he had to go play there. He didn't get the opportunity like Michkov to be loaned out somewhere else and just kind of be that star player. But what he did get was a ton of ice time, a good support system, and a lot of great opportunities to be a star. And the one word that I would use to describe him is he plays like a hero out there. And, you know, when you need a guy out there to go and take the puck and make something happen, that's what he does. And he does it better than anyone in his age group. So we've been looking at him for a while because he's been this guy that's been kind of dominant playing against older competition throughout his career. I think he's a top 3 prospect. Some people think he might not have the physical traits or might not just be well-rounded enough. But with that puck, man, there's few guys who could do what he could do.
Stephen Ellis joins us from dailyfaceoff.com. As you know, the draft, you know, Celebrini, everybody's talked about him, but as it goes along here, like from 2 to 6, like Lindstrom, I've seen him ranked anywhere as high as 3. Some people have him down at 7. Now there's Silyev, there's Berkeley Catton. You know, there's lots of different guys. Stephen, how close is it after Celebrini in your eyes? Like, do you have a clear, like, is it pretty clear in your eyes who 2, 3, 4 is?
It's pretty close. And just from talking to other scouts, they kind of seem to think the same way. It's, you know, right now for sure, Celebrini, he's in his own class, no question about it. I guess a lot of it also kind of just depends on who drafts second, because I know a lot of teams really like the potential of Demidov to be a number 1 right winger in the league, but some teams might want Artem Levshunov, who is that do-it-all guy, defenseman, right-hand shot out of Michigan State, who could hit, score, skate well. Sam Dickinson out of London, I think he doesn't get enough love. He's very well-rounded. What if someone wants to take a chance on Zane Parekh? You know, not the greatest defensive prospect in the world, but 30-ish goals and almost 100 points as a blue liner, like unbelievable. Like it's something that hasn't been done in my lifetime, at least for a draft eligible defenseman like that, better than what Ryan Ellis did. So I'd say number 1's very defined. I think it just really depends on what scouts really have to think. I know that feels like a cop out, but you look at NHL Central scouting list today, and a lot of scouts I talked to today were just shocked by, you know, seeing where some of these guys were, because it's, you know, Celebrini at one point, or not Celebrini, Cole Eiserman, a lot of people were looking at him as a top 3 prospect. He was the number 12th North American skater on Central Scouting. It's so wide open depending on what your need is. So I'm always on the board of draft your best player available. Don't pick for need, because your need by the time that player's ready could be completely different thanks to free agency, whatever. But in this year, that might actually be a situation, because a ton of good defensemen, but also a couple good forwards that I think are getting a bit ignored there. I'd say compared to more recent years, 2 to maybe about 7, 8 is probably a lot closer than it usually is.
And we've seen a lot the last year, Stephen. We've seen guys taken 10 to 20 that have turned out to be, you know, 2 years after the draft, everyone's like, geez, they should have been a top 5 guy. Right. You know, so there's going to be, who are those guys in the 10 to 20 range that you really like, that you think, you know what, I think this guy's going to be a really good player in the NHL.
One name I'll mention is Carter Yakimchuk out of the Calgary Hitmen. He had 71 points this year, 30 goals, and like 120 penalty minutes. Like, this guy just did a whole lot of everything there. One of the more entertaining players to watch in the WHL, especially on a team that just didn't give him a lot of support. I think Trevor Connolly is a name that's, you know, it's an interesting one to see what happens here, because he's there's been some off-ice issues with him, and they've been well documented to the point where I know a lot of teams are not even close to touching him at this point. But from a skill level, we're talking about a guy who could go top 5, top 10 in this draft. So I think that could be another one. But the biggest riser late in this season is Beckett Seneke out of the Oshawa Generals, who, Cal Ritchie, one of the top prospects in the game right now, a Colorado prospect, came back from injury, and Seneke was with him on that line, and it seemed like just both of them just unlocked some new potential there. And the Seneke had one of the best hot runs of any player in the end of the season there. From talking to some scouts that didn't have him as a first-round pick in January are now thinking top 15 right now, because they're seeing a guy who's so smart, so skilled with the puck. It's just good two-way effort, 200-foot game. It sounds like cliches, but the things that coaches really look for are players that work really hard and think very well. And that's something that Seneke does really well.
Steve Ellis joins us from Daily Faceoff. He is the prospects guru. It's funny, if you look at the 1995 NHL draft, there was Brian Bedard, Wade Redden, Aki Pateri Berg, Chad Kilger, Damon Lankow, Steve Kelly, Shane Doan, Terry Ryan, Kyle McLaren, Radek Dvorak. All of them were taken ahead of Jerome Iginla. And, I think, in hindsight, obviously Iginla was the best one. So now you fast forward to 2024, and his son is rated right around 11, 12, 13. What do you make of it? Is he a guy, like, when you look at the genetics of people, right? Like, some guys develop a little bit later. Doesn't mean they're going to be worse. Do you see the young Iginla on a similar path?
I think so. Not exactly, square for square, same style player there. But with Iginla last year, I think a lot of people looked at what he was doing with the Seattle Thunderbirds, a team that went to the Memorial Cup, and he basically played a very minor role. And they said, okay, cool, he's got the last name. Not sure we're seeing it. But he went to Kelowna this year and just took over. He just a scoring machine. He loves having the puck on his stick. He's very, very competitive, just like his dad. He wants to fight for every single puck out there. He's not willing to back down to bigger, stronger players. He's got that tenacity. And again, he thinks the game so well. When it comes to Jerome Iginla, that was one of the best traits about him. He just thought the game at a higher level, whether it be making that pass no one was expecting, just getting himself into some scoring role or scoring areas. That's what his son does. And it's been cool to see that, because, again, I was thinking about him maybe being a late first rounder at best, even early in the season, but it's just, he gave me no reason to think that anymore, because he just continued to just continued to dominate with the puck, to the point where if he got drafted top 5, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it could really depend on a team's long-term output there, but there's a lot of people that are kind of suggesting that, because they're seeing the upside. They're seeing how much better he's gone throughout the year, where he's had to do so much for his own team. There's a ton of upside there.
Yeah, there's anybody else in the WHL that's you've mentioned, of course, Yakimchuk. We've talked about Iginla. We talked about Lidstrom. There's obviously Berkeley Catton in Spokane. Anybody else in the dub that jumps out at you?
The one that I like is Charlie Elick out of Brandon. And, he's got the size. He's 6'3". He's about 200 pounds. Maybe not the greatest offensive player, but I think that he also is maybe a better puck handler than maybe the stats or people give him credit for. But he's very difficult to just beat in your own zone, because he's a workhorse. He can play a lot of minutes. He's going to shove you around. He's going to force you to the boards. He's going to make you miserable. And a guy like that's probably going to go later in the first round, maybe early in the second round. But it feels like someone where maybe the potential is not super high. We're not talking top pairing, but I could see him having a very long career as, a second or third pairing guy. And you need players like that. You're not just drafting first pairing guys every single year. You need these guys who can do a lot of other things. And I feel like he's your bread and butter guy that will make that happen.
Steven, great stuff, man. It's going to be interesting to see. It's odd that the draft lottery hasn't officially been announced yet. It's going to be May 6th or 7th. But, and that's why I kind of just feels like it's like less hype, and maybe it's because the Bedard, there was so much hype, but man, I think Celebrini is going to be a really good player. I hope it's May
7th, because I'm coming back from Finland on May 6th, and I like to be able to pay attention to it.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, hopefully, you know what? Maybe put in a memo. We'll see if the NHL does it for you. There you go. That's Stephen Ellis joining us from Daily Faceoff, and that guy, trust me, read his stuff. That guy watches so many, and he is great because there's lots of people that can tell you about the top 15 or 20 prospects for sure. But when you look, and every year there's guys, lots of second-round picks, third-round picks. You go see his analysis on those guys. Like, there's not many that go as deep on their analysis as Ellis does. That guy spends a lot of time watching games, man. Like, it is crazy how much scouting he does. 2:45, Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440. When we were come back, hey, local guy playing with coaching with the Celtics. We'll talk about it next in the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Let's break down the
Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube, and Facebook, is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Ooh, it's a big Tuesday. $70 million for Lotto Max and 10 Max Millions at PlayAlberta.ca. That's pretty big. Pretty big. Let's get to our basketball report now, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Where, hey, they can keep you warm, they can keep you cool. And we're heading into the summertime. You're thinking cool. Well, there's nothing more cool than getting an AC unit. No payments, no interest for 1 full year. Only available at legacyheating.ca. As Paul Sir, host of the basketball show, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. here on Sports 1440. Paul joins us now. And Paul, I was having an interesting conversation today with Ryan Dunkley in regards to Buckner, and he's the fact that he's on the Boston Celtics coaching staff, and a lot of the video analysis and coaching he's done in Europe has allowed him to be in the NBA. It's a pretty cool story.
It's a great story. Jermaine had a long and very successful career, primarily in Germany, and that has now translated into a very important role with the Celtics. And Jermaine is right in the thick of things in breaking down what the opponents do, what his team needs to do, and he works directly with the entire coaching staff and management staff. So Jermaine is in deep with the Celtics.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. So I look forward to talking to him this summer. Actually, once their playoff run is over, heck, they could easily get out of the East, especially with the announcement today. Well, the Bucks are struggling anyway, but now Giannis might not be ready to start the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a nightmare season for an organization that I think really thought they had figured something out by getting that strong second option when they brought Lillard in from Portland. They had hoped that would really keep Giannis not just healthy, but help the team thrive. And it just hasn't quite worked out. Doc Rivers is brought in inexplicably mid-season, and I believe his record, Jason, is 17-19.
Yeah, it's awful.
What a train wreck going into the season. So barring a miraculous recovery by Giannis and the Bucks just finding their mojo, I would say right now, they're going up against a team that could give them some trouble. And the Pacers don't have playoff experience, but they got a tremendous amount of firepower and a lot of youthful exuberance. So we'll see how that translates.
Yeah, like you look at the East, and Boston has really run away with it, Paul. Like it doesn't really look close between them and anybody else. Now, whereas the West, it's like an absolute dogfight amongst the top teams. Do you see like anybody who could really give Boston any trouble in the first 3 rounds in the East?
I don't. It would have to be a surprise coming from somebody. But the Knicks without Randall, I think if the Knicks had Randall, maybe. If Anunoby was healthy, maybe. But the bottom line is Randall isn't healthy, and I don't think they have enough to contend with Boston. And like we were just talking about, unless something miraculous happens with the Bucks, I don't see anybody that can take a real serious run at Boston. They should just roll through the first 3 rounds and set up a matchup in the final with some beat up team that's going to come through that gauntlet.
What about the Philadelphia 76ers? They end the regular season on an 8-game winning streak. Joel Embiid is back. How does that? I know they're the number 7 seed, right? So they're going to take on the Heat in that play-in game, and then the Bulls are going to take on the Hawks. But what do you make of the 76ers now, Paul?
Well, they're a lot better now, and like you correctly point out, the 8-game run shows that they're much more solid going into the playoffs than they were for most of the season when Embiid was hurt. If Joel Embiid, the defending MVP in the NBA, is healthy and playing like himself, you're right, Jason, that might be a threat because Embiid provides a challenge that nobody, including the Celtics, have an answer for. And I think he has good enough people around him that they could be a threat. You still have to look at the Celtics, their depth, their regular season, but regular season's a bit of a placebo. It only matters when you get into the series, what you're able to do in the playoffs. Celtics should be prepped for a good run. They've got experience of getting to the finals. They've gone through the disappointment. They've gone through the battle testing. You would expect them to be as ready as they've ever been with this group of players. But the Sixers with the X factor in Embiid could be the one visible threat in the Eastern Conference.
Paul Sir joins us here on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. And in the West, though, Paul, you have the Thunder end up with the number 1 seed, which could play into it later on with home court advantage. We'll see. The Suns beat out the Pelicans in a tiebreaker, so they finished 6th. So it's the Pelicans and the Lakers, and then the Kings versus the Warriors. The Warriors have finished strong, but is it smoke and mirrors? What do you make of the Warriors' finish, and how do you like their chances against the Kings?
I just saw the Kings last week at Barclays Center in New York City, and they're not a bad team at all. Fox is a very good guard, and Keegan Murray is evolving into a really good player, and Sabonis is Jokic light. He's kind of like Jokic's little brother out there. Not quite as big, not quite as good in some respects, but man, is he a beast. And so they'll work hard, but with a couple of key injuries that they have, they don't have much depth.
Yeah.
So I would look for the Warriors to beat them. I can't see the Kings right now beating a Warriors team that seems to have found itself a bit. Klay Thompson's playing much better. Draymond Green hasn't punched a teammate recently. So things seem to be on the up and up with them. So it's going to be interesting to see how they defend against Sabonis, because they being the Warriors really don't have a true post that's going to be able to match up against Sabonis, but they have a committee that they'll throw against him. And I just don't think that the Kings can stop the guard power of Steph Curry, Thompson, if he's on. And I think some of the other, Andrew Wiggins seems to have found himself again. So I would look for the Warriors to move into the next playing game.
Paul Sir joins us, host of the basketball show every Saturday here on Sports 1440, 10 a.m. until noon. The WNBA draft went last night. Caitlin Clark, no surprise, went number 1. Edwards went number 6. The Canadian, of course, from UConn, goes to the Washington Mystics. So I guess, we've talked about Caitlin Clark before, and you think obviously she's going to be a very good player, but there's a transition period for some, maybe not others. What about Edwards? How do you see her transition going? Like Clark, sometimes I think it's maybe an advantage to be an outside shooter when you go to the next level, simply because, it might be hard to get your shots off, but if you're a shooter, you're going to get to shoot lots. How do you see Edwards making that transition?
For me, it remains to be seen, because I don't know how physically she will translate into the WNBA. I mean, she's big, but not huge. She's 6'3". She plays primarily around the basket, really doesn't shoot outside of 15 feet. So she's mostly going to be a power player. I think she'll be fine. Like, she's a very good power player. She has great footwork, offensive skills. She rebounds extremely well and defends extremely well. I would say out of the gate, you look at her as a role player who could evolve into an important role player on a team. I don't see her being a dominant force offensively, Jason, but she certainly has the athletic ability, the physical strength, and the instincts to be a real good WNBA player. Not a game changer like Caitlin Clark, maybe for Indiana, or when you look at the draft that the Chicago Sky has with picking up both Angel Reese from LSU and Camila Cardoza from South Carolina. I mean, you just drafted 6'7" and 6'4" if you're Chicago. So they're going to make big impacts, I think, in Chicago. Edwards, I think we'll just see where she fits into the Mystic scheme.
Paul, great stuff. What's coming up on the show on Saturday?
We're going to be talking WNBA. We're hoping to have a Canadian Dallas Maverick on the program. We're working right now with Dallas to get Dwight Powell to come on, talk about the playoffs, and a lot of other tricks up our sleeve. But we're really going to go in heavy on the NBA playoffs and also the upcoming CEBL season and the Stingers.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's awesome. It should be great stuff, Paul. We appreciate it. We'll tune in Saturday at 10 a.m. right here on Sports 1440. Have a great day.
You too, Jason. Thank you.
There you go. That's Paul Sir, host of the basketball show right here on Sports 1440 every Saturday from 10 a.m. until noon. It's a great show, man. If you love basketball, they cover it all. It's a lot of fun. Hey, speaking of basketball player, I learned something today that I probably should have known before. When I heard about it, I instantly thought of The Simpsons. Oh, Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today for those basketball folks out there and a principal. Oh, unreal. Let's get to Connor Halley and a sports 1440 update brought to you by your Alberta GMC dealers. Get up to $6,500 cash back purchase credit when you get a 2024 Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate, but it's only available during Truck Month, which ends this month. Stop in now at any of your local Alberta GMC dealers.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
8 games on the ice tonight in the NHL. You got the Sens and Bruins. Red Wings head to Montreal. Flyers host the Capitals. Hurricanes up against the Jackets and Maple Leafs in Florida. Jets host the Kraken, Golden Knights, and Chicago, and the Flames in Vancouver. In the association, the NBA playing games get going at 5:30. Pelicans taking on the Lakers. The winner of that one will clinch a playoff spot. The loser takes on the winner of the Warriors and Kings. Those two teams meeting at 8 o'clock. Off the court, 6-time All-Star forward Blake Griffin's announcing his retirement in a letter posted to social media earlier today. The first overall pick in the 2009 draft appeared in 765 games over 13 seasons with the Clippers, Pistons, Nets, and Celtics. Major League Baseball, Toronto Blue Jays in action, once again hosting the New York Yankees. That's set for 5:07. You'll also have the Twins taking on the Orioles, Rockies in Philadelphia. Rays host the Angels, Guardians taking on the Red Sox, Brewers host the Padres, Braves in Houston, Diamondbacks battle the Cubbies, and the Mariners meet the Reds. Earlier today was the Tigers doubling up the Rangers 4-2. In the AJ, it's game 3 of the league final. Calgary meets Drum Heller. Calgary leads that series 2-0. And in the WHL, you got the Blades and Rebels meeting at 7 o'clock. Saskatoon leads that series 2-0. Warriors and Broncos meeting in Swift Current. That series tied at a game apiece. And Kelowna looking to get back into their series against Prince George, currently trailing 2-0. The Edmonton Elks have signed American defensive back Keyshawn Walker. Walker joins the Green and Gold after appearing in 3 games with the San Diego Strike Force of the IFL in 2024, where he recorded 12 tackles and 2 INTs, and 4-time Brier champion, also 4-time world champion. Glenn Howard announced his retirement from competitive curling today. Howard appeared in 20 Briers over his career, including 2024. Coming up in hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll be joined by our co-host, Terry Ryan, as well as Dave McCarthy of SiriusXM NHL. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
The Wilhauk Beef Jerky today in Leduc, Spruce Grove, and West Edmonton Mall.
Gather around the radio, kiddies, for the best time of day. It's Oodle Noodle time. Listen in this week as your noodle hero battles the barbarous Bobby Burger. Now sing along. You know the words.
Hey, there.
Time. Oodle Noodle time.
Hello, you.
You know
Rolling through a lovely Tuesday. Edmonton owners on their way to Arizona. Well, they will play the final game at the Mullet Arena tomorrow night. The Coyotes then. Now, I don't think it will be like, was it Baltimore when they, or Cleveland when they left and were on the, which one left to go to Baltimore or Cleveland? I can't remember. But either way, they just left on, they packed up everything overnight and tried to get out of Dodge. Not going to be the case here. The sounds like the way the deal is going to work is the Coyotes are going to get sold to the NHL. Then they probably for like $1 billion. And then the NHL is going to sell that franchise to Mr. Smith for like 1.2 or 1.3 billion. So they can say, hey, we got 29 other franchises that get to partake in that $200 or $300 million and split it amongst them like they really need it. But anyway, that's what they'll do. And my question is, though, because you're selling the franchise to the NHL and then the NHL, does it remain the Winnipeg, Arizona, now Utah? Like, do you maintain that as your franchise history? I'm curious about this now. Because we've seen like the New Jersey Devils were in 2 different cities before, right? So you've seen it, right? The Calgary Flames, of course, they still honor the Atlanta Flames, etc. So I don't know, but like if you sign to the NHL, or now you get in a brand new franchise, or you get in the existing one, might be a story that no one else cares about, but I'm just curious on the logistics of it. We'll see. It is the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game tonight. Woo, there's some good, juicy games to get in on. The Bruins need a win to ensure that they finish ahead of the Florida Panthers. Right? If they don't, then Florida catches them, then Florida plays Tampa and Boston plays Toronto. And from a selfish standpoint, that would be better. Better rivalries. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the Wings and the Canadians, Wings obviously need a win. The Capitals and Flyers, somebody's going to win that game. See who it is. Penguins play tomorrow. Their game might not mean anything. It might mean everything depending on what happens tonight. So we'll enjoy that. And you can get in on all the action at PlayAlberta.ca as we welcome to the show 2-time author, former first pick in the National Hockey League, a 1995 NHL entry draft, stars as Hitch on the cult classic hit show Shoresy. Terry Ryan joined us, our Tuesday co-host, TR. What's happening?
How's it going?
Yeah, living the dream, buddy. On the right side of the dirt, as they say. So it's good.
Nice. Yeah, shout out to last week went to Winnipeg for the Mike Keane Celebrity Hockey Classic. Was an awesome time. We raised some money, and it's good to see some people I haven't seen in a while.
Oh, okay. I saw you and Barnaby. Like you guys were having a fun little pose off.
Yeah, Matt's a lot of fun at those things. We often gravitate to the same place. Some people go and they shake hands and they might, what happens is that you go to these things and the team that raises the most money drafts first. And then it goes down the line. So each team that's in there drafts somebody. There was a lot of great guests. Dana Merzen and Keane, Dave Ellis, Jamie McCowan, Curtis Glencross. There was a lot of players there. So, but Barnaby's in for the long haul. We go to these things, and whoever drafts us, it's assumed we're probably going to go and to eat with them and to the bar and all that stuff. So I'm sure the teams know that, and usually Matt and I get drafted around the same place, and we go to the same spot because, you just end up listening to live music or whatever it is. Matt likes to have a good time.
Oh God, yeah, no, he definitely does. There's a lot going on in the NHL. Like if you like playoff races, it's right down to the wire. Pittsburgh wins last night, stay alive. Detroit overcomes a 4-1 deficit. Lucas Raymond, what a hero for the Wings, ties it late, wins it in overtime. The Capitals shut out the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins have been shut out twice this year, both times by Charlie Lindgren. Like, none of those teams I don't think are that good, but I'll say this. For the last few weeks, like the Islanders, I don't know what they won now, 7 in a row, or they're 8 or 9 of their last 10, right? Like they didn't limp their way in. We can argue that the division wasn't that great to get in with anyway, but they're in. And now you've got 4 teams, Washington, Pittsburgh, Detroit, and Philly, all with a chance. Washington and Philly playing head-to-head. Detroit, Montreal. Pittsburgh plays against the Islanders tomorrow. The game might not mean anything for Pittsburgh, depending on what happens tonight. But, man, This is you couldn't really write a better script down the wire if you like playoff intrigue.
Now, I don't want to be what's the word? Really biased, be recency bias. I don't want to feed into that. But doesn't it seem to you that the storylines, team-wise, personal-wise, I mean, the race for the President's Trophy, not that people take really particular, of all the things in hockey, I don't think many people care about the President's Trophy like they would in soccer or football, as you would call it in some places, which makes sense for our sport. I mean, it doesn't always translate to winning. And it's not like you really want to celebrate it because it's almost like a jinx, so, but it's nice. So no one really knew, I remember Winnipeg and Vancouver being in on that, and there was all kinds of talk about who the best team in the league was. At the same time, now we're getting these matchups that, like we don't really know. I remember Toronto, usually know who they're going to play for at least a month, and we still don't know. And it could be Boston, who's going to be, for obvious reasons, if you follow the Leafs and the Bruins in the recent past, in the distant past, that would be a nice little rivalry. Just one example. Then you've got the race for the Hart Trophy, and I say Hart, but really for all the trophies, but really for the Hart Trophy right now is the most pronounced. I think it's probably the most respected. You could argue against that if you want, but it's the NHL MVP, and really you could give it to 5 people and be okay. Fair enough. It's just one of those wild years. I don't know what you think about that. Maybe I'm wrong. You follow it every year. You analyze it to death. And this is my first real year, maybe second, really analyzing it and following every game. And I find it absolutely fascinating.
Oh, no, I can tell you, man, there hasn't been a race like this when you look at it. Now, the Art Ross, McDavid missing out on 3 games, that obviously made it a 2-horse race. And right now, it looks like Nathan McKinnon's would have to go nuclear to win it, but it was a pretty good race down the stretch. Right now, McKinnon still has a chance just to get to 140 points. Right, he needs 4 points because he does own the tiebreaker, but he would need 4 points in his final game, and Kucherov would have to go pointless. So it's pretty hard. But the Hart Trophy vote I think is close. I still think that Kucherov or McKinnon are on a little tier above guys like Matthews or McDavid or Panarin and others. But, I think people can make a strong argument either way for Kucherov or McKinnon, depending on, which numbers you look at. But I can see the argument. I won't get mad if somebody votes Kucherov first, McKinnon second, and the next guy votes McKinnon first and Kucherov second. I can see the argument for both. To be honest, it'll be kind of more interesting how they rank them 3, 4, 5 for me. But it's great. Even the West, like the West, we know who the 8 teams are, but you still don't know outside of the Colorado Winnipeg series. That's a for sure lock, and we still don't even know who's home ice. We think it's Winnipeg, but it's it's not a guarantee. And like Nashville lost last night, so they're not even guaranteed to finish in the first wildcard spot. Vegas, if they beat Anaheim and Chicago, which doesn't seem like that hard of a task, they could pass them, right? They could also pass LA. So now LA, I don't think LA can beat No, they can't beat Nashville. So if Vegas does win out, then LA will be the 8th seed. Vegas would be the 3rd in the Pacific, and Nashville will stay in the first wildcard spot. So there's still lots to be determined in the final 3 games of the season. It's fun.
Yeah, so much to be determined. I guess that's what I meant. There's so much to be determined. It's that comes down this late, and usually those things to be determined aren't as interesting. I just find this year, and I think something has to do with I hate to bring it up again, the parity. I don't always love parity, but just in this case, I think there's something to it this year. Like, your guess is as good as mine. I told you, not because I'm on this show, I had the Oilers from day one. I put money on them at the very first day of the season. But so, I hope they win, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I wouldn't be surprised if, honestly, 10, really. So that's what's so intriguing. And my favorite time of the playoffs is the first round, is because there's so much happening, and there's multiple games on every night. And I really appreciate as a sports, as a hockey fan, those first 2 weeks of the playoffs. And this year, I'm really looking forward to it, because immediately there's going to be 8 teams knocked off, of which the majority you're going, holy cow, what are they going to, 8 teams that probably traded for some people at the deadline that didn't just squeak in, and even if they did, Vegas made the most moves, didn't they? And they're like, it's not like they're in first place. They really had to get on. They had to go on a winning streak just to get here. So I find it all intriguing. And as a hockey fan, I think we're in for a treat for sure.
Oh God, I can't. Like, I'm looking forward to Saturday. I think there might be 2 games Saturday, maybe 2 Sunday, and then it probably gets to like the full slate on Monday. I know the Oilers are pushing hard to start on Monday, which would give them an extra day after playing, finishing the season with 5 games in 7 days, 6 games in 9 days. So I understand why they'd be pushing for it, and I think they might get it. So it makes sense. And the TV to not have playoff games on the weekend doesn't make any sense to me. Right. And if you look at the schedule, like the not New Jersey, but the New York Rangers finished up yesterday. They're done now. They don't play again. They want to play on Saturday. I don't think they want to hold out any longer. Right. Like Nashville's season is over. It's kind of odd, really. Like you've got some teams like Edmonton who has 2 games remaining, and then you got Nashville who's done. And you got the Rangers who are done. So now the Sabres are done, but they're not in the playoffs. So it doesn't really matter for them. They fired their coaching staff and everything. What do you make of that on the Granada? Like, I look at Buffalo. And I said at the start of the season, my one concern about Buffalo was last year, despite all the Tage Thompson excitement and everything, they still were a terrible team 5-on-5 defensively. And they didn't improve a whole bunch this year, TR. Like, they still don't defend very well.
I think they regressed that way. I mean, they had moments. They had some streaks. Buffalo always seemed to do that, to show you that they're good enough, show you how much potential their players have. And then they puke on themselves. And I don't know, like, defensively, I watched enough Buffalo games to know that they're not just playing poor defensively. It's some of their major players. They have way more potential. If you look at that team, some teams you're like, God, like, do they really have it? Were we wrong? Are they not as good as we thought they were? But with Buffalo, it's like, no, give me a break. Come on, something got. Sometimes I feel bad for the coaches. I'm not on the inside of that dressing room, but something had to happen. They're playing way below themselves, and everybody knows it. And by now, they should be a contender. So as far as I can see from the outside looking in, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You got to do something.
Oh God, yeah, they had to make a move. I don't think there's any question about that. Connor McDavid, 100 assists last night. TR took him on the 9th goal. Funny enough, he scored on his first shift of the game as a goal. Kucherov could get to 100 in his next game for them. I think that's tonight, or is it tomorrow? I can't remember. I think it might be tomorrow. But you look at that season for McDavid, 100 assists. Like, it's funny. I've seen people like Gretzky did it 11 times. But it's not even 100 assists. You go back and look and see how many guys even had 90 assists, right? Like, it's hard, right? Like, It's not like you have a bunch of guys who are at 99, right? Like, the only guy who has more than 98 is Kucherov, right? Like, there's only 5 guys who have even hit 98 assists.
Yeah, I know. It's a round number that's easy to compute in your head and judge accordingly. But a couple things there. Yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing. And that it seems like the last 2 or 3 weeks, everybody's asking what's more important, 100 assists, what's harder, 100 assists or 70 goals. I find that argument almost it's redundant. Like, it's just, what are we talking about? What are we comparing? These are great. I don't know. I don't know. Like, people would say, well, who's better, or Gretzky? Guys, I don't know. We're talking about an unbelievable achievement. I guess I could dissect it one way or the other. Less people have had 100 assists. But these people, that's kind of what I'm going for here. Like, there's so many seasons, 4 in particular, that are so amazing that here we got one of the best players ever, Sidney Crosby, getting his team possibly into the playoffs, but he gave them a chance and played great, and he's not even in the conversation, right? So where are we when Sidney Crosby is still relevant and still getting a lot of points and not even in the conversation here? Like, so there's that, and there's something I want to point out, though. Someone was asking me. I think Connor McDavid is the best in the world. I'm not putting him down here, and I hate to do it when people say this, but when you look at Gretzky doing it 11 times, this is what I try to say to people. I'm like, it's hard to compute, to quantify the greatness of that. Everybody else on that list did it once. I'm not saying McDavid, but he might do it 6 more times. I hope he does it 11. I'm nothing against him. But when you put it in perspective, how good was Gretzky? I don't want to hear about the goalies because everybody else wasn't doing it. I don't want to hear about any rules, or it's relative to your era. What did you do against it? That's a solid number, 100 assists. I could say he just led the assists. That's more relative to an era. But 100, right? And everybody's done it once, but Gretzky's done it 11 times. I love McDavid, but this year, you miss a few games, got caught looking down, you don't win it. Gretzky would have 218 points right now. Like, or 15, in his prime, and we had 204 times. I know the goalies weren't as good, but if you look at, you take Lemieux out of that equation, like Yzerman is like a great player. I had like 150 points, and he was like 50. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just, and I'm not taking anything away from McDavid. We're all Edmonton fans here. We're on an Edmonton channel. Gretzky did all this on the Edmonton Oilers. I just find it, to look back when you really dissect Gretzky's numbers,
dude,
they're otherworldly. Would be, I don't know, man. Like, it's just crazy, the numbers that he put up.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think it makes McDavid's 100 assists all the more crazy relevant, that he's joining that kind of company, which, that could be really your Mount Rushmore, couldn't it? The three players that he joined. You could make the argument that McDavid's right up there on that Rushmore.
Oh, God, yeah. And then you're going to have some people, hey, wait about Gordie Howe. I get it, right? I understand it, right? Like, Gordie Howe had the longevity for sure. But when you look at, like, I always chuckle when people said, oh, yeah, but the bad goalies. I'm like, oh, really? Look at everybody else. They had 120 points, which is what a lot of players get now today. Not a lot, but a few, right? The other guys in the league had 120 points. Gretzky sometimes had 70 or 80 more points than everybody else.
That's
like
all I mean.
80 or 80. Like, stop saying it was the bad goaltending. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
Ridiculous. He was just
That's what I mean, Jason. I don't care if you get 50. Oh, someone won it. Jamie Benn with 87 points. Now, I don't care if you win it with 87 points or 500 points. If the rule comes in and there are no goalies, and if you win it every year, and you're dominant every year, then I don't really. That's what I mean with relative greatness. It's relative greatness, and the rules can come and go. But I'm a hockey player. Give me whatever area. Give me some skates. Give me a stick. Give me some glove. Now go out there and do it, right? And to just be that much, like I often say, Babe Ruth, when he had 60 home runs, the record was 61. And then, of course, in recent history, we've seen people chase it. Saw Judge, I think it was last year, the year before, 60 or 62, whatever it was. That was the big number, 61. But when Ruth had 60, the second place person didn't have 20. I can't remember who that was. But that's what I mean. It's that kind of, so you can look beyond the stats and, oh, well, they weren't pitching it the same. And, the DH, okay, whatever. I'm just saying, relative to an era, it's pretty crazy. Now, I think by the end of his era, I think we'll start to see, like, when we evaluate McDavid after it's all over, you're going to see more than 3 MVPs. I think he's got now. He's going to start, he's going to fill in the blanks rather handsomely. But I just don't think anybody's ever going. Well, that's ignorant of me too. There could be someone in 100 years, but I don't know. It's going to be tough to ever do what Gretzky did. Not just numbers, just the amount of awards he won within his peers every year.
Yeah, it's fair. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you on Sports 1440. Quick break. Dave McCarthy joins us next on The Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Let's break down the McDonald's Quarter Pounder
Oh, a little bit of the Cars. Ooh, nice. Welcome back. Tuesday afternoon on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Always stream us at sports1440.ca. So wherever you're at, we love listening to the show. Let's go in the room now, brought to you by Next Gen Transportation, heavy haul transport provider, huge supporter of numerous youth sports teams, donate tons to local charities as well. They love giving back and being part of the community. It's nextgentransportation.com. As Dave McCarthy, our regular Tuesday guest from Sirius XM, host of the Sunday Brunch and Ice Caps and many other shows. Davey, how you doing, my man?
Good. I'm trying to make my way outdoors to do the hit today. It's a little cold, but I'm grinding through it because it's the time of year, boys. You have to grind through it when it's playoff season.
It's true. It is. It's very true. That's what is the white gnome in the background over your right shoulder? What is that? Yeah, that white thing up on the ledge there, far in the bush. Does it look like a goat or something?
Way off in yonder, right? No, that's actually a wrought iron deer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Somebody thought they were goats a little while ago, but I can understand. So yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe you had a pet goat all of a sudden. I was like, unreal. So
I would love to have goats, but in my part of Etobicoke, I understand there's a bylaw prohibiting such things.
No goats. Okay. But let's talk about a few things here. You look at the Atlantic Division might be the one division. Like if I look and say, hey, I think Edmonton's the favorite in the Pacific. Okay. I think Dallas is the favorite in the Central. Okay. Rangers, Carolina, it's close. Sure. In the Atlantic, honestly, Florida, Tampa, Boston, Toronto, you could throw all four up. And if somebody says, I think it's this team, I'm like, geez, I can see your argument there. So you look at the matchups, Dave, and the Bruins lost to the Capitals last night. And I know I saw some people complaining about, the playoff format should be 1 versus 8. And I laugh. I'm like, are you jabronis not paying attention? It would still be Boston versus Tampa and Florida versus Toronto. So grab a clue. But anyway, you think there's a better matchup here? Like I personally want to see Boston, Toronto because of the rivalry, and then Tampa, Florida. Right. But if you were Boston, like is Toronto or Tampa, like, is it still Toronto or how do you think they would approach it?
Well, first things first, people not paying attention. Are you new to social media? Of course, they just spew things into the ether because it sounds like what they want to hear and they'll get clicks for it. You're 100% right. It really wouldn't alter the playoff formats all that much. I do think the Atlantic Division is quite wide open because I think you look at Florida, you look at Boston, you look at Tampa, you look at Toronto. I really wouldn't be shocked if any one of those teams got to the conference finals, so to speak. So would Boston be more favorable? Like, I think I'm going to speak from Toronto's standpoint because I can speak to them much more closely than I can to any of the other three teams. I think Toronto would be better off playing Boston than they would Florida. They're two options right now. Florida hasn't played well of late, but I still think that they're a team that once the playoffs get going here on Saturday, they are going to be able to flip the switch and get to the game that they need to get to. I am concerned about Sergei Bobrovsky if I'm the Leafs. That guy, we saw what he did last year when he's feeling it. And, I think he could be the best goalie in the Eastern Conference right there with Andrei Vasilevsky right now when they're at the tops of their games. I think as good as Swayman and Allmark have been in Boston, they're slightly more gettable. And I don't think the rest of the Bruins team is as deep, obviously, as it was in past years. They don't have Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci part of the fold. Ultimately, up the middle of the ice, that's a wart that's going to show itself either in the first round or the farther they get into the playoffs. So, if you're going to give me Matthews Tavares v. Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle, I'm taking Matthews Tavares all day long. And if they can't win that battle, then that's a bigger problem for the Maple Leafs than we might realize that it already is. Right. So, that's what I'd say. Leaf wise, I think they would prefer to face Boston. Florida could be a heavier matchup. And we've seen what they've done when they really start to roll around and lean on you. I think Toronto's better positioned to handle that style of play this year. but I still think Boston's roster on paper is not at the same caliber that Florida is.
TR.
Well, so Max Domi's out. You had Domi, Bertuzzi, and Matthews, and they clicked pretty well, especially Domi there. Now he's hurt, Dave. What if Marner goes in tonight and gets 4 points, and Matthews gets 2 goals, 2 assists, whatever? They're extremely successful.
Right.
Do you change it up? Because until today, unless that happens, I've been pretty sold. It took a while, but these guys are really on fire. They're playing well, and now Marner, who's never really expendable, but now you can move him in other places. What do you think's going to happen? Suggesting they have a good game together today.
Right. Well, I mean, if they were to do so, it wouldn't be shocking, right? Matthews and Marner have shown that they can play together pretty effectively. But I think what happened when they had Matthews with Bertuzzi and Domi was that it lengthened their lineup to an extent.
Yeah.
It also found a real good home for Max Domi, because when he was centering the third line, while it was a productive line, defensively speaking, not one that Sheldon Keefe had a great deal of comfort in turning to when they were up a goal. So, it's a shame that he ended up, my understanding is that he banged himself up to some extent in the tilt the other night with Simon Nemec, when he gave a little bit of an extra shove and Max came in off the top rope. And look, I'll never criticize him for doing that, because I've been begging, pleading, cajoling people for the last 5 years in Toronto to play that way. However, it's disappointing he got himself hurt in a circumstance that, as egregious hits go, that was far from it. But I'm not criticizing him. But what Sheldon Keefe said prior to that situation was that the Bertuzzi, Matthews, Domi line is not a short-term thing in his mind, Terry. He feels it's a line that he can continue to go to and continue to employ in the playoffs, because it allows them to have some different looks. You put Marner with Tavares, and we'll see now, because Bobby McMahon's out. Looks like Matthew Nye is going to move up to the left wing slot on that line with Tavares and Nylander, I should say. That's quality line. But when you had Marner on that second line, you could move Nylander down to the third line. It's not like he was buried as a third liner. They were still finding him shifts up in the top 6, but it just gave Sheldon a little bit more flexibility. So I'm of the mind, honestly, Terry, that for Max Domi not to be playing in game 1, I think they'd have to cut his arm off. I'd be shocked if he's not in the lineup in game 1. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Sheldon Keefe reunite Domi with Matthews and Bertuzzi, and then go Marner, Tavares, and whoever, and Nylander on that third line with maybe Kalle Järnkrok if he's back, somebody of that nature. I do think they like a lot of this Bertuzzi, Matthews, Domi line.
Hey, depth is often what the playoffs are all about now. Who do you think? You think Samsonov's going to start the first game? I would have said yes 100% until some of the recent vulnerabilities shown. But I still think he's more on track than off. Now, part B of that question, I'm looking at Matt Murray, and did I miss something? I thought he'd be back like in the 2027 season. I had no idea. Could he have a Leafs jersey on? So part A and part B, who's going to be playing goal? And what about Murray?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Ilya Samsonov in game 1. Joe Wall is going to start tonight against Florida, a potential opponent, right? I think it's smart you keep Samsonov out of that matchup. If things go south, you don't want it living in his head that it didn't turn out all that good last time he played them 5 days ago. So I think that's a smart call. And then as for the goalie who starts against Tampa on Wednesday, Keefe said on Monday at practice, we'll see, which is to suggest to me that it's more likely to be Marty Jones than Ilya Samsonov, which, if you extrapolate even further, suggests Ilya Samsonov is the guy in game 1. And I think that's the right call. He didn't play great in the last 2 games against Jersey and Detroit, but neither did the team in front of him. And prior to those 2 games, from about the All-Star break, and maybe just before the All-Star break onwards until those 2 games, Ilya Samsonov's numbers were damn near close to Vezina Trophy caliber. Now, not saying he should win it. Just that 2.5-month span, he was that good.
Yeah.
So I think he's earned the right. I think they'll go to him in game 1. Matt Murray, he started on Saturday for the Marlies, conditioning stint. They ended up winning the game. Look, I think that's a worst case scenario, boys, if they have to turn to Matt Murray. But it's always good to get a guy up and running if you can, because you never know what happens. Look at Vegas last year, where they thought Logan Thompson at some point, then he got hurt, then they needed to turn to Laurent Brossoit, then he got hurt, and then Aiden Hill came out of completely nowhere and led them to a Stanley Cup. So you may need 3-4 goalies. Who knows? I don't think the likelihood is for him to play. That's certainly not part of the plan in the playoffs. But, credit to Matt for the work that he's put in, long, hard hours this year to recover from that bilateral hip surgery in September to get himself to a point where at least he could play a professional game in the American Hockey League last Saturday. It's a really cool story.
Dave McCarthy from SiriusXM joins us. Dave, the Islanders, you know what? They got hot down the stretch, not even with Sorokin. Varlamov's being their main guy, which that'll be fascinating to watch if he actually starts game 1 of the playoffs. They're going to face off against Carolina. Is this, to quote Daryl Sutter, a waste of 8 days for the Islanders coming up?
I don't think it will be a waste of 8 days. No, I don't look at the Islanders as that inferior to Daryl Sutter's Calgary Flames against Colorado a couple of years ago. I think the Islanders deserve a lot of credit for how they pulled themselves up out of a hole that I thought was too deep to climb out of really just two and a half weeks ago. Semyon Varlamov has been very good. Ilya Sorokin, too, has improved his play of late. So I think they've got 2 legitimate options there. It looks like they'll probably go with Varlamov at this point in game 1, but now you've got a guy as well in Sorokin that you feel you could turn to, and who knows? We've seen a lot of teams start a guy like, not saying that the Islanders are a cup contending team, but remember Washington a few years ago, they started Grubauer, then they turned to Holtby, and away he ran. So I think this will be a close series. The Islanders. I think they're a little bit longer up front than they were those years they were getting to the conference finals by bringing in, Bo Horvat. I think that has helped. I think they're a team that is going to need to play real sound defensively, and they're going to need to capitalize on their power plays. If they can do that, I think they could sniff around. I'm still picking Carolina to win the series, but I could see this going 6 games for sure, because I think the Islanders have really played well, and they've been a team that over the last 2 or 3 weeks have essentially played playoff hockey to get in. Sometimes those teams can be dangerous when you find a groove there and you get rolling and you just keep it going once the playoffs begin.
Davey, one last one. When you look at the West now, Edmonton, clearly they're a better team than San Jose. That was an old-fashioned ass kicking last night against the Sharks. They really kind of pulled the reins back. It was 9 goals after 40 minutes, for goodness sakes. They could have went for the franchise record. They were actually on pace for 13 at the point, so that would have been fun. But you look at Edmonton going in, Vegas has a chance now because they play Anaheim and Chicago. They could catch LA and catch Nashville and end up finishing 3rd, which would mean an Edmonton Vegas matchup. Is there a matchup? We know Colorado and Winnipeg for sure. Of the other potential ones, is there one or two you'd really like to see in the first round?
Oh, well, I do like building rivalries, and that Oilers-Kings rivalry is a good one. Now, the Kings, there have been periods of time the last 2 years where it's looked like they've had the Oilers on the ropes, and they've been unable to finish them off. I think the Kings are a bit of a dangerous team this year because they've been really up and down. Their coach has lost his job throughout the season. They're still found a way to get it together and get into the playoffs. This is a team that, at the beginning of the year, they couldn't lose on the road. And I certainly thought, okay, this is going to be a real legit team that's capable of, at least on paper, contending for a Stanley Cup. Now, their goaltending concerns me a bit, but so too does the Oilers. So I think that could be a bit of a wash there between the pipes. Not really a team that has a distinct advantage in goal. So I think that would be a good matchup, that standpoint. And I still do think that LA is among, if not the best positioned team up the middle of the ice to contend with the Oilers' depth up the middle with McDavid and Draisaitl, to have the ability to essentially, match up Anze Kopitar against one of those guys and Philippe Danault against another. It could force Chris Knoblauch to load up. That could take away from the depth. I think the pieces are there if LA executes their game the way I think they should be capable of, to push Edmonton a little bit. I'd still pick the Oilers in this series, but it would be close. It would be like the results in most counties in the United States election, like 51.5 to 48.5. I think it would be very, very close. But I do think, a bounce or two goes the Kings' way. If they execute their game the way they're capable of, I think they are absolutely capable of beating Edmonton. It would be an interesting story to see if they could, make it a finally where they knock off the Oilers, or if the Oilers go full 2,000 Leafs on the Kings like they're the Senators and just keep beating them every year in the playoffs, much to the chagrin of Kings fans. So I think that would be a really cool rivalry. I think the series has a potential to be really long and compelling. I would like to see that happen a third straight year.
All right. Davey, as always, buddy, great stuff. We'll be talking playoffs next Tuesday. Can't wait.
I love how it's like regular season done and then bam into the playoffs this year without this like 3-4 day wait leading up to it. Let's just get after it. I love it.
No, I think there's going to be 2 games Saturday, 2 Sunday, and then we probably get to like a full slate of games Mondays and Tuesdays. We'll see. Nothing is confirmed yet. They're still kind of waiting. So we'll see what happens. Davey, have a good one. How to gut it out in the cold, frigid weather in Etobicoke.
You might see goosebumps on these arms right here. So I'm going inside.
All right. Okay, buddy.
We'll see you at the game Tuesday, Davey.
Oh, you're in town, Terry?
I'll be promoting Shoresy next week, and I'm going to do the color at the Allen Cup games for the Southern Shore Breakers, my Newfoundland representative. But I'm going to the game on Tuesday.
Brilliant. Okay, make sure you pop down and say hello. It's seat 63, buddy.
I'll shoot you a note on Twitter after this is done and keep you updated.
100%. See you, boys.
There you go. That's Dave McCarthy scheduling a date live on the radio with Terry Ryan. That's fantastic. 3:45 on Sports 1440. Gregor, Ryan, and Halley with you. Quick break. We got Ryan's rant coming up and more on a busy Tuesday edition of the Gregor Show live in the E-Well studio, EWEL. When you think sports and electricity, they collide, and it's perfect spark at E-Well.
Your love for strawberries is
Welcome back, man. This Tuesday is just flying by. Gregor, Terry Ryan, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. And it is time for Ryan's Rant, brought to you by Action Electrical. You want to take action on your savings? Call them right now. How you can get a 10-year interest-free loan if you want to get solar on your house. Or how about this? You can, here comes the sun coming up in the probably the 5 o'clock hour today. We will, actually, no, we'll probably do it in the 4 o'clock hour, where somebody's going to qualify. And you know what you can win, courtesy of Action Electrical? A $15,000 solar system installed on your home. Or you can gift it to someone. All the details at jasongregor.com. So I'll get there courtesy of Action Electrical. Here is Terry Ryan and Ryan's Rant or Terry's Tales. He decides.
Thank you, Jason. So last time I got off on a tangent about the eclipse, okay? So what I'm going to say was
people
more
loved
relevant.
it, by the way. There was lots of good feedback on the eclipse.
Some
Great.
people did. I'm sure some people did. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad that people at least were entertained. What I was going to talk about that day was, and I know this is a little bit irrelevant now, but I just want to just get it off my chest, and it's not going to take long because I don't want to go through the fighting argument. I find it redundant, like whatever. It's here. I just want to go through like just my opinion on a couple of things from that New Jersey Rangers brawl, right?
Yeah.
With Rempe and oh God, was it
McDermott?
Okay. So there was clearly a feeling in the air that was going to happen for reasons I don't need to get into. Rempe needed to answer the bell at some point, and it was a hockey play. You know, whether you're for it or against it, I don't really care right now because just where I'm going with this is that okay. What I see, I didn't even realize it happened. I was doing I think it was in Halifax. I was doing an event, and I was doing it with Carey Price. So I was like all about. I was enamored. It was like starstruck almost, you know. And Carey played Quesnel, Millionaires, Tri-City Americans, Montreal. They're just the same route that I had. I just never was in the same room. When I told him that, it was great. We had an awesome conversation. You know, spoken to him again since, like a really nice guy, and I had a lot in common. I knew that, but still, it's Carey Price, and I, as a hockey player, more the hockey fan now, I really look up to everything he did as an NHLer and as a person, and to hold yourself that way, you know, to not really step out the lines for so long in the public eye, I really respect. So I was paying attention to really hanging out with Carey that day and Rod Black, and we had a good time. And later on, I see everybody's asking me about this brawl. So I look at it, and here's what I see. I see, how many does Madison Square Garden hold? 20,000 people? 19?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so it holds 20,000. I see 19,900 going crazy, you know, and I see maybe of the 100 that are left, maybe they're at the concession or they're going to the can. I don't know. I didn't see now. Maybe there were a few hundred outliers that didn't like what happened. Okay. It didn't seem like that to me. And it seemed like they were actually really appreciating the moment. Really, like they were really into it. Okay. So we've got that. Now, so everybody enjoyed it. Now the players, there's a poll all the time. You ask, you go to any dressing room, I don't even need to look. The poll is always over 95%. It always has been. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Guys like Patrick Kane, Connor Bedard, I don't know, Alex DeBrincat, guys that you don't think of as people who go out there and fight, but they don't really mind it in the game. Look at Austin Matthews when Ryan Reeves was fighting last week, or even last year. I remember a couple of times Kane came in. Now he's not expected to do it like Reeves, but McDavid, Draisaitl, and company love it, love it, love it. When Carrick came over and he got in that fight, what did the bench do? So what I'm trying to say is that if the players got no problem and they really enjoy it, and all those fans in Madison Square Garden loved it. Loved it. I'm looking at Stephen A. Smith talk about it. Pat McAfee show. This hockey's getting major attention, and not for something stupid that happened. Not because people went in the stands or there was a goalie brawl and we got out of hand and someone chopped someone over the head. This was 5 fights that happened because you know what? We're pissed off and we don't like you and you don't like us. And this is hockey and we can do it. Now, when it comes to we can do it, here's what I hate. And by the way, what I'm really getting at is reporters. Some of them I know, some of them are friends. So I'll try to just keep my cool here. But they comment, right? This is garbage. Is it? You're 52 years old. The game, you never did skate. All those people love it, and the players want it. Why don't you shut up? Whoever it is, or this got to get this. This has to leave the game. Does it, or are you 52 or whatever? I'm just using it as an example. And you're looking at the situation and you don't like it, but you know what? We don't really care because you shouldn't have anything to do with the game. And by that I mean, how did you even? I get having an opinion. I do. I totally understand that. But don't be condescending to me. And the reporters, if you follow it, and I've been in the same room with some of them. Don't talk down to me because I was a player and I had 34 of those one year, because that takes a bit of sack, right? That who knows if you got, because you're pushing pencils all day. Now, what I'm trying to say to you is that if I walk into an NBA building, I don't know, the Warriors are playing the Lakers, and I got Steph Curry and LeBron James, and they're going at it. And I love the game of basketball as a fan, but I don't like the three-point line. And I say, well, that's not real. I don't like it because if there was no three-pointers, the Warriors wouldn't have won, and I like layups and dunks. You know what you should say to me? Yeah. And you know what, Terry? We don't care. We don't care because you shouldn't have any impact on the game as an outside fan. And I would say, exactly. Thank you. I'll keep watching it, three-point line or not, because it's basketball. I didn't play pro. I'm a member of the media, but I respect all those fans and all those players that love it. So who am I to say, yet above and beyond looking down on Steph Curry for shooting them? You know what I mean? I can't believe that I'm even having to say this. The argument for or against fighting is redundant. We know who lays on what side of it. But the last thing I'll say, don't tell me that we allow it because it's not a penalty. It is a penalty. It's at least 5 minutes. And what happened that night? The 8 other people who broke the rules and fought after the first fight got kicked out. And they knew they were going to get kicked out, and they did it anyway, because in hockey, we fight sometimes. And it's the same rules. If there's a baseball brawl, it's way more dangerous. Those guys are playing the next night. Basketball, have you ever seen a basketball fight? It's pathetic. But it's still not like a 10-game suspension. So it is penalized. They just don't want to do it in the other sports, and it's not part of it. So I'm not arguing that we need to have all this fighting in other sports. No, it's good where it is. But you know where hockey is? We've always had it. And this year again, they go, well, there's not that many fights anymore. Yeah, we're going to have 300 and change. There is fights. There are fights. And some people are just going to have to accept it. And when you see Madison Square Garden go crazy, and the vast majority, we're talking 99.9% of the fans in there and the players and the referees penalized it as they should, then what are we talking about? Now you're talking about the players. So instead of talk down to all the media on Twitter and ex-players and everything, why don't you go into dressing rooms, sack up and go into the dressing rooms and try to convince the players, because that's who you got to deal with. The refs penalized it, right? The refs did penalize it. They did exactly what they would do. And in another sport, you'd get kicked out. Maybe that game, maybe one more. That's it. They just don't have them because it's part of our sport. So if you're one of those members of the media, I get your opinion if you don't really like it, but you're a hockey fan. But don't talk down to me. And don't put out these passive-aggressive tweets like you know better than Matt Rempe, who's involved in the fight, than Mika Zibanejad, who's not going to fight, but he's playing the game, arguing that we should have fighting. Like, who are these people? That's all I'm saying. I know I go on, and it's another argument about fighting, but God, I'm looking at it going, what are we talking about? Talking down to me on Twitter. Some guy that the closest he got was cleaning somebody's skates in high school as the equipment manager. Like, F off. I can't stand that whole, this is garbage. I don't know. Is it, or are you watching the wrong sport? Because if all those people don't think it is, I don't know. If you don't like fighting, don't go watch the UFC. You're probably not going to like that either. If you don't like hits, if you don't like rough stuff, don't go watch Australian rules football. Pick lawn bowling, right? But I just think the argument in itself is redundant, and it's here, and let's embrace it. It's something that separates us from other sports, and we can do it as athletes and pat each other on the back and totally we can park it, respect it, and leave it where it is. And I love that about hockey, and I'm not going to back down from it.
They are. Now that's a rant. I love it. It's hard for me to argue with any of that. And hey, I've talked about it when Chris Simon passed away. You saw all those same people get on their soapbox. They don't care about Chris Simon. All they care about is wanting to write about CTE. And his brain hadn't even been tested yet, so they don't know if he had CTE or not. And the thing was, I actually just read Ted Nolan's book, and he talked about, and this was well before Chris was even in the NHL, and they had a chapter in the book talking about when they were going to acquire him and how he had all this trauma, even at that time, and Ted obviously knew him, and Ted was Indigenous, just like Chris, so he knew his background, and he talked about how at that time he was a troubled guy. So could he have CTE? Very likely. Is it just from fighting? Well, statistics would argue that it isn't. And the truth of the matter is he hasn't played in the league in a long time, and the league is much different now than it was when he played. And I would agree that they don't care about the player's safety. That's the biggest bogus lie that they like to hide behind, because the truth is they just want to be like, I want to get rid of fighting, and they don't like fighting. Well, great. You don't like fighting. I don't like your stance on it. And most people see through it. And the other thing is Matt Rempe, Ranger fans love the guy. Why? Because 99.9% of people would not want to do his job. They could not do his job, and they respect him because they do something that they themselves would never want to do. The numbers don't lie. Like Matt Rempe the other day, I was watching the Ranger game. He dumps the puck in, and the crowd's going crazy. Like, he's just become a cult hero there. His teammates love him. He's learning now that he doesn't have to fight every guy just because they tap him, because he actually can hit. He's a really good skater. And so he can intimidate guys physically. Obviously, there's a select group that's going to want to fight him. But you know what? He's a rookie, and he had to fight to get in the league. Now his skating, hitting, other stuff, that's what he'll work on. But I'm with you, TR. It's great to hear, and I think that the vast majority of people, they just tune out those because they know who they're the same people that just bring it up every time. It's the same whiny excuse. They don't really care about the players. They like to say they care, but to quote Michelle Taryn, they say they care. They don't care, which is still one of the greatest rants ever. And that's Ryan's rant, brought to you by Action Electrical. Let's get to the con man and a sports 1440 update, brought to you by Fountain Tire. Stop in at Fountain Tire right now, and you can make the shift to more savings. Save up to 25% off select tires, plus a $50 bonus on every service of $150 or more. Book your appointment today at fountaintire.com. The tire sale ends on Saturday.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
Eight games on the ice tonight in the NHL. The Flames are in Vancouver. Golden Knights hosting Chicago. Jets take on the Kraken. Maple Leafs and Florida Hurricanes up against the Blue Jackets. The Flyers welcome the Washington Capitals to town. Canadians taking on the Red Wings, and the Sens are in Boston. In the association, we've got the play-in games tonight. 7 seed, 8 seed matchup as the Lakers taking on the Pelicans. That gets going at 5:30. At 8 o'clock, the Kings take on the Warriors in the 9-10 seed game. Off the court, Blake Griffin announcing his retirement from the NBA. The six-time All-Star was a first overall pick back in 2009 and appeared in 765 games over 13 seasons. Major League Baseball, Blue Jays are in action. They'll host the New York Yankees once again. First pitch set for 5:07. Later today, I'll be Orioles taking on the Twins, the Rockies in Philadelphia. Angels travel to Tampa. Red Sox host the Guardians. Mets up against the Pirates. The Royals are in Chicago to take on the White Sox. The Cubs on the road taking on the Diamondbacks. Mariners host the Reds. Cards battle the Athletics, and it's the Dodgers hosting the Nationals. Earlier today, the Rangers falling to the Tigers 4-2. Game 3 of the AJHL final, Calgary meeting Drumheller. Calgary leads that series 2-0. Puck drop 7 o'clock in the WHL. 3 games tonight. Red Deer hosting Saskatoon. The Blades lead that series 2-0. Broncos and Warriors meeting. Their series tied at the game each, and PG leading Kelowna 2-0. They'll meet just after 8 o'clock. The Edmonton Elks have signed American defensive back Keyshawn Walker. Before joining the Green and Gold, he spent last season with the San Diego Strike Force of the Indoor Football League, where he had 12 tackles and 2 INTs, and 4-time Brier champion and 4-time world champion. Glenn Howard announced his retirement from competitive curling today. Howard made 20 Brier appearances during his legendary career, including 2024. Coming up in hour number 3 of the Jason Gregor Show, we will be joined by former NHLer Jason Strudwick in the last 5 questions. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
1440, Stingray Radio Station.
CHJR broadcast.
After 4 o'clock, how are you, Gregor? Terry Ryan, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube and Facebook, streaming at sports1440.ca. Maybe you're listening on the app, wherever you are. You're watching it on Twitter. We appreciate it however you get the show into your life. It's great to have you on board. The Gregor Show is always presented by playalberta.ca. And hey, you can get them in your life. And how about $70 million tonight for Lotto Max and 10 Max Millions? Oof. Not bad at all at playalberta.ca. And of course, there are some big games in the National Hockey League tonight. Detroit. Like, this is where I love that I have the NHL center ice package. And honestly, if you buy it early in the year, I always buy it when it's on like their special sale. It's like $200 for the whole year. So that's a lot of games for $200. I figured it out. I'm like, I spread that out over 7 months of the season. So now you're down to like whatever it is, $30, just under $30, like 29 a month. And you get to see a lot of games if you want. And I'll channel surf sometimes, see different ones. I like listening to different commenters as well, as far as the broadcasts go, right? There's some I like listening to at different times. There's certain players you want to watch. A team's really on a roll. Okay, let's check out them. And tonight, man, it's great. The Canadians in Detroit, which of course usually is blacked out because TSN's a regional broadcast, but you get that one. You have the Philadelphia and Washington game. It's like a playoff game, really, is what it is. Right? You win and you still got a chance. Lose, you're done. You got no chance. So it makes it great tonight. Terry Ryan joins us. TR, how you doing, my man? Do you have center ice package out there? Do they offer the center ice package? I'm just kidding, of course, but because you guys have like cable out there, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's all the same. I got the Sportsnet, TSN. I got as many hockey games as I could possibly see. I didn't realize what the package was called, but yeah, I got all of it.
You got all of it. All right, okay.
Well, I just once I didn't always, and then once I like to be well informed when I do this, but I found like you get addicted to it, and then so I'll often maybe make some small bets. Same thing with football and basketball, baseball, just so I keep my finger on the pulse. But once I got the packages, I can see all the NHL games.
Yeah,
I got like, even if I didn't know, like I just try to put myself in an objective point of view coming in and not knowing any of the sports. I mean, it's just a great sport, man. It's so fast. You don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And I really enjoy watching sometimes teams. I really sometimes in the recent past, I wouldn't be able to name you 5 players on some teams, but after you start watching and the storylines, I don't know, it becomes addictive. Now I know I'm talking to a bunch of hockey fans. That might sound ludicrous for me to say that, to point out something so obvious, but it doesn't happen to me like the other sports. Watching a game with, I don't know, Miami and the Pelicans basketball, and they got some names, but it just gets old to me. But hockey, I feel refreshed. I love sitting down and whatever it might be with supper or whatever, and just seeing the puck drop.
Yeah. Well, hey, I love it when there's games that matter. That Toronto game tonight is one. There's lots of playoff implications there. In that one, Matthews is going for 70 goals. And so, it's a pretty huge milestone. Kucherov's going for 100 assists. So, you know what? There's lots to watch for. The fact that Kucherov and McDavid could go in back-to-back nights to get 100 assists is mind-blowing to me.
Mind-blowing.
I think it's Florida and Toronto. But the fact that, they can go 2 guys in 1 year, get 100 assists when there's only been 3 guys in the history of the game. And I know some people try to think that weakens it. I completely disagree. Like, they're both separate. McDavid's assists aren't tied into Kucherov in any form. And it doesn't mean it's easier because 2 guys are doing it. They all played in the league last year. They all played in the league the year before. They get 100 assists. Right? McDavid didn't even have 90 assists last year. So, yeah, like Kucherov's over 140 points. Man, what a season that guy's having. Like, really, Kucherov, if he gets 100 assists, he becomes actually only the 3rd guy to have 100 assists and 40 goals in the same season, Jordan Lemieux and McDavid. I mean, Lemieux and Gretzky. Like, it's even more rare what he's going to do, right? Like 100 apples and 40 goals. Like, that is ridiculous. So it's fantastic. I love this season, the competitiveness of the top teams. Even the fact that the wild card in the East, which was somewhat of a snail's race for a while, has really heated up in the last 2 weeks of the season. Penguins got red hot. The Islanders got red hot. The Flyers are winning some games. We thought they were dead in the water. The Capitals somehow can shut out the Boston Bruins. No other team in the league can shut out the Bruins, but Charlie Lindgren shuts them out twice.
I know, that's just wild, right?
Yeah, there's lots of stuff right now. I can't wait for the playoffs, honestly. There's teams that I think I look at and say, okay, I think they're going to win. But there's lots where I'm like, well, if the other team wins, I'm not going to be surprised. The only major upset is if the Islanders beat Carolina, that to me would be a big upset. And whoever finishes 8th, if they beat the Rangers, to me, that's an upset. In the Atlantic, I don't think there's any upset there. Toronto, Boston, Florida, Tampa, any team can win their series. I won't be surprised.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And usually coming in, there's been most teams are fairly healthy. Most of the best players are playing, which is not always the case.
Yeah,
I don't want to get this. I didn't say it because of Mark Stone, but I find that, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Vegas always seems to pull it off, but it's funny that, because he could probably play now.
Well, that's the thing. It's not that he wasn't hurt.
I agree with you. It's not that he wasn't
hurt. You're able, but they're not breaking any rules. It's because that's the rule the league wants, right? So that's why I'm like, hey, if the rule's there, you're not breaking a rule. We can all say that it's shady, sure, but they're not breaking a rule because the NHL decides that they're fine with it. So it's odd, but that's how the NHL views it right now.
There are things, it's like the Michigan, people don't like it, but it's a rule. And so I even though I'm old school, I take the other approach. If you can do it, and that guy can do it, and there's an opening, and he put it in the net, I'd always want a goal, so I see it happening. They're going to run into it now in baseball. I forget the guy's name. There's a guy in New York Yankees, and the way he winds up is almost like a balk. Well, it is. It looked to me like 2 balks in one play, but the way he does it, he manages the windup that it's not really against the rules, but it's really looks awkward. It's throwing people off, and who knows? But that's what happens. It's any sport. It's a pendulum, and that you'll allow this, and then okay, we didn't see that coming, and it'll swing back the other way, and then it'll swing. That's entertaining. I just brought it up because of the fact that there's a lot less injuries. I didn't think Stone would be back because of the spleen. I do believe he had it. The timing's odd, but that's not what I'm saying. He's coming back. I like to see most teams prepared. There's guys that are banged up a little bit, but for the most, even Vasilevsky, to have Tampa, to have him. And at the beginning of the year, I didn't know if that was possible. If I want to see Tampa in the playoff, I want to see him with Vasilevsky more so than anybody else. I want to, the fact that they have Kucherov and Stamkos and everybody going, it's great. And the NHL playoffs are not always the case. Look back, because it's a long regular season and everybody's bumped up in some way or injured and banged up and bruised up. So, we're going in here with a clean slate for most teams. And I think that's what's going to be the most entertaining part about all this is that, it truly is best on best.
Oh, God, it's going to be great. A lot of texts flying in our email inbox, 833-401-1440. Hey, boys, TR's rant hit the nail on the head with that one from Carson. Terry, that was your best to date. Keep it up from Rob. I love it. That rant was raw awesome. We need his voice and others stand up for the game and its roots and its culture. Thank you, TR. That one comes from Donnie M. There's many other ones who are loving it. Guys, inject this energy directly into my veins from Jason Leduc. So I like it. Boys, we need more of TR. Yeah, hey, we'll get the TR, man. Once he's done his tour, and we'll get him on more regularly, which is great. So it'll be a lot of fun. But the people were enjoying that, as they should, because I think most hockey fans understand exactly where you were coming from. Hey, anybody who at this point in life, you're not paying attention if you're clamoring to want to get rid of fighting. Fighting has reduced to the level now where it's a comfortable one where, we don't see the stage fights very often. Rampy did for a bit, and he had 3, and people were freaking out. He's fine. You know what? To have a line brawl doesn't happen very often. They're all fine. You had guys on there that weren't Rempy that don't even ever fight very often, and they were doing it. And I still think that that's going to unify the Rangers in ways that people maybe don't understand. If anyone's ever been into it, it doesn't matter how well you doing it. It's the fact that you're willing to do it when you're guys who aren't really doing it very often, right? And that's what makes it entertaining. 421. It is time now for Here Comes the Sun, our new daily contest that we will do every day here for the next month, courtesy of Action Electrical. And man, it is an unreal package where you're going to get Basically, a turnkey solar system for your home valued up to $15,000. It includes the site assessment on your home, structural engineer and permitting costs, the supply and installation of a solar system on your home. Now, there's some rules. You got to be a homeowner, right? You must reside in Edmonton and surrounding areas. Now, here's the catch. If you qualify and you're not a homeowner, you can gift it to someone who is a homeowner and they reside 50 kilometers inside of Edmonton. And keep in mind, though, their home has to have shingles that are 12 years or newer. Why? Because they want to save you money. Because if you have old shingles and you put it on, then you got to replace your shingles in 2 years. Now your costs are going through the roof because you're going to have to take the whole electrical system, the solar panels off. Okay, so it just makes it way more. So it works out better that way. Now, if you have a tin roof, we ask people, what about tin? Tin is fine. Tin's not shingles. It works. So, but you know what? If you have the asphalt shingles, 12 years or newer. Now, you can, of course, nominate a friend if you qualify. So that's pretty easy. Today, we did it yesterday. But we're going to try to make the questions a little bit harder. Not too hard, but a little bit harder, right? Just because it makes it more enjoyable. So we'll go today with I think this one's all right because so last night Adam Henrique on the moves up for a few games, plays with McDavid and Hyman, gets a goal and 2 assists. Not bad at all. He's up to 24 goals now. He has 6 goals in 20 games for the Oilers. He had 18 goals in 60 games. Like, talk about consistent. He had 18 in 60. He has 6 in 20. It's the exact same pace for Adam Henrique. He's on pace for 25 goal season. He's at 24. Adam Henrique, you need to include your full name and the correct answer. Right? Adam Henrique's career high in goals. Text in the answer. Career high in goals for Adam Henrique. 833-401-1440. We give everybody a few minutes. We close down the text line at 4:27. So you have 4 minutes. People listening online, they get the 30-second delay. Don't worry. You're fine. Name, correct answer. You get one guess. If you guess it wrong, you're out. 833-401-1440. Career high in goals. Adam Henrique, what is the number?
You know, I got into reffing for the excitement.
He's going for the chair.
Get a little bit of extra for the Strud man today. He's always gets excited for it. Welcome back, Gregor Show. Jason Gregor. Jerry Ryan with you. Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Alberta's only regulated online gambling website. And if you've never tried it, if you're a first timer, use the promo code SPORTS50 and get a free $50 wager at PlayAlberta.ca. It's time now for the oil report, brought to you by Volvo Cars. Edmonton.com. Spring is here, baby. And right now you can get a lease for 0.99% or save up to $4,000 on select models right now at Canada's #1 Volvo dealership and the only 13-time Excellence Award winner, Volvo Cars, Edmonton.com. As Jason Strudwick, former NHLer, runner-up in the Battle of the Blades, co-host of the Got Your Back podcast. Jason Strudwick joins us. Struddy, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Lots going on. We got the play-in NBA. You got the NHL, kind of a play-in for that last spot. I'm loving it. I love this action.
Yes. So, it's it'll be good. It'll be really good. You look at the play-in action in the NBA. I know you're a big fan. You would like the play-in in the NHL, but I look and say, well, you already have it now. So why do you need it?
Well, I think it's not like that every year. Like, I think this is when you have 4 teams competing in the East for one spot. So it's a bit unique, but I think it does elevate the drama. It makes it more exciting and keeps more teams relevant for longer. And I think that's important in any sport, to try to keep as many fan bases engaged as long as you can.
Yeah. Let's look at the Oilers last night, Struddy. That was a good old-fashioned butt kicking that was over after 40 minutes. And, Edmonton kind of sat back. It's 9-1. You're like, oh, my goodness. It's, they didn't even go for double digits. Not that they didn't try per se. They actually, Fogle had a few good chances to get his first ever hat trick and his 20th goal of the season. But, what do you make of that game last night? Do you take away anything other than the fact that the Sharks are terrible?
Yeah. So first off, the only guy trying a third period was Fogle. And I get it. He was trying to get that hat trick. And I'm like, go for it, buddy. I think that's great. But I'm not going to take much out of that game because the Sharks, they are a really bad team. Like that team, if there's relegation, they'd be relegated down. Obviously they've got some injury issues. They've got contracts that moved out. They have young players trying to play, and it's just a disaster. You can see Quinn on the bench. Like, he was just like, what the hell is going on here? So I think the Oilers just went out and they did what they did. They overpowered the Sharks, and they just took care of business. But I'm not going to say that, Holloway or Fogle or these guys, the bottom 6, are contributing like crazy. I'd like Arizona, you might give a little bit more, or Colorado. That game could be nothing for both teams. So I think you got to be careful, a fan or any of us have to be careful, really taking anything out of these games as far as what we might, take out. Okay, this is what this guy is doing moving forward.
So you're not ready yet to say Dylan Holloway has to be in your top 9 for game 1 of the playoffs?
Oh, man. I think that he's going to go with the veterans. I think he's going to go with that veteran group, and Holloway will be like a shot of adrenaline in the arm. There's some really nice things. Like, he played 3 games. I thought the first game was the strongest against a good competition. Second game, not quite as strong, but that line was just good. And then last night, everyone looked good. I mean, it was, I think you and I could have played in that game and still looked good. So, I think it's dangerous to just say, we're going to put this guy in and just go for it, because then who comes out? Is it clear? It's not Perry, it's not McLeod. I guess it has to be someone on the 4th line. I guess that maybe come out, and does Fogle get bumped down, or who gets bumped, or Kane? Where's Kane fit in? So I'd anticipate him going to veteran group, and then Holloway's the guy on deck if there's an injury or if they want a shot of adrenaline.
Struds, I know they've been up and down on the year, but they've had a lot of injuries and a few setbacks. How dangerous do you think Las Vegas could be here?
I think they'd be harder in the second round than the first round. Like, I actually want the Oilers to play them in the first round. I think that you have to not exercise the demons, but, you want to go out there, you want to, you're going to be at home, you're going to have home ice. They have a lot of new parts, and they do have some good players. Not sure that their goalies are completely set. So I think if you want to play them, I think you want to play them in the first round, or the second round, if they win the first round, now they've kind of got a little action under their belts, and they're, maybe a little more organized. And, I'd give Stone, let's call it 4 to 7 games to get going again. Hurdle to keep a chance to blending in. But if I was the Oilers, I'd want Vegas. I want to take on Vegas. I want to slay that dragon and move on. So to answer your question, I think they get more dangerous if they move on, but they're not the team from last year. Let's make sure that they're not playing like the team from last year.
100%.
Totally agreed. Now, Matthews hasn't got 70 goals yet, but let's say hypothetically here, for argument's sake, what do you think happens again sooner? Someone gets 100 assists or someone, say, gets 69, 70 goals?
Well, it's pretty incredible that Kucherov's probably going to get 100 assists in the same year.
Same week.
I can't believe it. Yeah, pretty crazy. So, I guess off of that, maybe based on that, but next year, 70 goals just seems really hard. But when you look at the people who've done the 100 assists, maybe it's 100 assists again, right? Maybe that's where it comes up because it feels like there's more and more guys scoring. But getting to 70 is pretty special. But I'll go with the 100 assists, guys.
Yeah, look, that's a great question because both of them are really hard to do, right? Haven't been done since 91 and 93 respectively. And the fact that there's two guys getting 100 apples, if Kucherov does it in the same year, is mind-blowing to me. And it doesn't weaken it at all. I think it's like, wow, this is greatness. Kucherov will be only the third guy to do 100 assists and 40 goals if he gets another assist here in their final game. Struddy, how much? So Kane rested last night. I know the Oilers are going to call up Broberg. He's going to play. So my question is for the defense. So they have 2 extra D-men. Stetcher's obviously going to play. It's his last game. It's in Arizona. They rest guys. So would you rest Bouchard, Ekholm one game and then Nurse Ceci the other game with your 2 extra defensemen? What would you do?
I'm resting Ekholm for sure. I think for sure one game. Bouchard's young. I don't know that he really needs the break. Okay. But I understand your idea. You take 2 out. So I think that does make sense. But maybe just because you want to rest the pairings, that's what you're doing. But I might even talk to Ekholm and say, buddy, because you remember when he was out, was he sick or something like that or whatever he had? And since he came back from that break, he has been shot out of a cannon. So I might say to Ekholm, say, buddy, look what happened last time with your time off. I might sit him 2 games, right? Just that because it worked. We know it worked last time. We can look at the results. I mean, he was just flying since that time. So I might sit him 2 times. And then maybe, then I guess you have to figure out the pairings after that. Because maybe if it's Ekholm twice.
And even the pairings, who cares, right? The games don't mean anything for the most part.
No, so maybe Darnell probably needs a time off. But I don't know. Does he really need a day? I don't know if he needs it off. And Bouchard, so I know what you're going with, but I'm more revolving around Ekholm. That's the guy. He's the older guy, Ceci, Bouchard, and I think Nurse would also get a game off. So then I got to give one more guy a game off. I guess maybe Ceci I don't know. Bouchard's so young. I don't know. I have a hard time giving. What is he? 24, 25?
Yeah.
Does he really need a day off? If you're 35, give the guy a day off.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. The Dallas game obviously wasn't good. Since the Dallas game, Nurse and Ceci, I was asked the other day, what's the X factor for the Oilers? And I'm like, Nurse and Ceci. If they play well, the Oilers' chances of going deeper increase significantly because I expect Bouchard and Ekholm to play well. And Nurse was very good November, December, January, and then he wasn't very good in February and March. And the numbers back it up. But since that Dallas game, Struds, I don't know what Paul Coffey said to them, but Nurse and Ceci's game has gone through the roof here in the last. I know it's only 6 games, but the last 6 games, those two have been utterly dominant. And it's finally, I guess was maybe the way to say it, this season after a good start. But when you look at that pair, have you noticed anything different since the Dallas game from those two specific?
So first off, it's interesting that conversation, the X factor has gone from goaltending to now a pairing on D. And I think that's a positive thing. I don't have any reservations about Skinner. He's going to do what he does. So I think that's a really positive thing for the Oilers. With Nurse and Ceci, I believe it's always the same with Nurse, trying to do too much, just trying to be everything every shift. And when he does that, he runs out of position. And it's not that he's lazy or it's not that he's dumb or anything. It's that he wants to do so much for the team that he just runs all over the place. And you can tell when he's out of position. And for anyone who's watched the games, he ends up reaching. He's reaching he's like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be back there. So then he turns around and tries to reach back, and he's just chasing the game. And it's the game's too fast, and the top players pick you off. And I think with CC, what he's done, I believe he's actually being a little bit more physical. Like, I think he's brought a little bit more physicality into his game, and then also jumping up in the play. Like, he's been putting in some nice points up. Not that that's necessarily what he needs to do, but, you know, a lot of times for a D-man, you don't have to lead the rush, but you want to follow the rush up so you are an option, whether you're, you know, at 10 feet, when the forward crosses the blue line, you're now crossing behind, so you're there and up in the play. When you're up in the play, you play on your toes. Then if there's a turnover, now you're already up in the play. You don't have to worry about adjusting your gap. When you don't get up the play or up into the play, now you're so far away, you're like, oh my God, and you kind of neither here nor there. That's when we see bad pinches. Oh, I'm not far enough up. Okay, I'm going to rush up. Oh, he just chipped it by me. Now it's a 2-on-1. So I think CC, the physicality, but also getting up into the play and supporting the rush and being, I think Hyman used the word connected all the time. I love that word. And connected means you can kind of see five in the picture all the time. When you do that, it gives the puck carrier and the other guys a lot of options.
TR?
I guess I was going to ask, what kind of an impact do you think Corey Perry will make in the playoffs? I only asked this because I got asked for my own podcast, and I know what people are used to. I just don't know if he's going to get enough ice time to make a huge impact, but I've been wrong, and this guy might maximize his potential every time he's out there. What do you think?
Corey Perry is the kind of guy that he's going to make the most of what he gets, and that's his mentality. And I love that about Corey Perry because, you know, so many players is, I'm not getting enough ice time, this and that, and then, you know, when they get a bit more ice time, they don't do anything with it. This guy, whatever he gets, he's going to make the most of it. He and his line mates have to understand when he's on the ice, they can't play track meet style hockey. He's not that guy, and he was for a while, but he wasn't ever like he was a complete burner up and down the ice. But they've got to understand when he's on their line, the best way for them to have success is to get the puck into the offensive zone. Doesn't mean dump it, just get it into their zone and then ground and pound. And they're going to create a lot by just, you know, cycling and holding on the puck, using your D, getting pucks to the net. And I love that style of hockey because that wears down other teams. And so, you know, let's say, you know, for now I know who the line, McLeod and Holloway and Perry. And let's say it becomes, just for the sake of argument, Kane, McLeod, and Perry. Those two guys have to understand that is what is the best for Perry, and he's really good at it still. So I'm interested what the lines are when they start, and then can that line embrace the identity and not to play down to Perry, it's more to play to his strengths, and that's how you're going to have success. So if McLeod's the center, McLeod knows he's got to be up in that forecheck as fast as he can, and not that Perry's not trying, but same with King, get up in that forecheck, and then let's ground and pound those guys, hold the puck, and we go back to the conversation we had last week, Greg, when we talked about Perry, you know, getting after Kane because he just threw the puck away, and everyone does it, but he wants to hold on to it and have long extended shifts in the offensive zone. Create a chance, you create a penalty, or you can create a goal.
Yeah, I think it's great. Jason Strudwick joins us. Struddy, is there one of those teams tonight, maybe tomorrow with Pittsburgh, we'll see, but you've got Washington and Philly going head-to-head. You have Detroit taking on Montreal. You know, and Detroit, what a comeback last night for them. They're down 4-1, and then Lucas Raymond, unreal end of the game, and then wins it in overtime. Man, what a night for him. But now they get right back in it. Can they carry that over? Like, when you look at that Detroit game against Montreal, and then the Philly-Washington, like, A, who do you like in the Philly-Washington game? And then B, do you think the Red Wings can have another miracle comeback? Because that's back-to-back overtime wins against Toronto and Montreal that keep their playoff hopes alive.
Well, no, what a contrast to the game Saturday night, right? Toronto against Toronto, they were up a ton, and then Toronto comes back and they have to fight for their lives. So I believe that Detroit's the team that's going to come out of this, and this is why. Those guys cannot wait to play that game. They would have played it right again last night. They just want to keep playing and playing. When you're winning and you're chasing down a playoff spot, you can't wait to get on the ice. And Lucas Raymond's feeling it. That guy, I bet you you can have a broken arm. He's like, feels good. I'm playing tomorrow. Like everything is just rolling. Whereas a team like, you look at a team like Philly, who's kind of was in a good spot. Now they've kind of come back to the herd. So I think Detroit's on the most momentum going forward. And I actually think they're the team that gets in. And honestly, I think Detroit is the team that needs to get in. You know, they've been rebuilding for quite a while. You know, some big contracts were signed. They've got some younger players who are contributing. I think they need to get in there to try and be a tipping point and kind of get everyone excited about the next round. I don't know if they're going to win any rounds, but they're going to at least get in. They're going to compete. And then there's like, that's the standard. We are now a playoff team, guys, and everything we do and everything we prepare for is to be that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Struddy, have yourself a great Tuesday evening, and we will chat. By the way, who do you like? Because I know you love the NBA. You love your play-ins. So who do you like in the play-in games?
I'm going Lakers, guys. I honestly think they're going to get it done. They're playing Memphis, right?
No, they're not playing Memphis, are they? No.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Pelicans. Sorry, New Orleans.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pelicans. Yeah, I've talked to other guys. Pelicans. Yeah, Zion. Yeah. No, and I think they beat up on them pretty good a little while ago. I think that the Lakers are going to get it done. One more big push by LeBron, man.
All right, Struddy, we'll chat playoffs with you next Tuesday. The orders either they'll have one game done. We don't know if it's going to be Sunday or Monday yet. They're still waiting. Last I heard, the NHL has yet to decide. They're going to have to wait, and it might come down. Well, the West especially. You still might not know until the final night of the season what the matchups are going to be. So we'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be a great playoffs, man. I think for the Oilers and for the league, this is going to be a crazy first couple rounds. I can't wait. It'll just be glued to the TV every night.
Oh, I'm with you, man. It's going to be awesome. That's Jason Strudwick joins us every Tuesday here on Sports 1440. That's the Oil Report brought to you by VolvoCarsEdmonton.com. Quick break. We'll come back. We got 5 questions, spec, DVD, and more on a busy Tuesday edition of the Gregor Show on Sports 1440, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hi, Brad McCorry here. Don't miss our
Busy Tuesday. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440. Man, did we have a lot of people entering today? Why wouldn't you? This is one of the best packages we've ever had on the show. Here Comes the Sun, brought to you by Action Electrical, where the winner is going to get a turnkey solar system valued up to $15,000, courtesy of Action Electrical. Includes the site assessment, structural engineering, permitting costs, the supply and installation of your solar system on your home. Now, there's a few things to qualify. Now, you can win this for yourself, or you can gift it to someone. But in order to 100% win, you need to have be a homeowner. So if you want to gift it to someone, they have to own their home. You have to reside, or they reside, within 50 kilometers of Edmonton. And you have to have newer shingles 12 years or newer on your home. And that's to save you lots of costs, because if you have to replace your shingles in a few years, well, you don't want to do that. And then it's going to be much more costly and expensive. Now, if you have a tin roof, don't worry about it, because you can do that. So we took all the text. Connor put it in the random machine, spun it around, and our qualifier today is Scott. Scott, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm excellent, my man. So you're going to be in the draw. Now, you're not officially in until we get the email, just so you know, because there's an email thing where you'll have to email. Connor will explain to you all that stuff. But you're basically 99%. Now, the rest is up to you to send the emails. Pretty easy. And have you thought about getting solar before?
Yep, I have. Yep.
Okay.
Well, been on my mind.
Nice. Well, guess what? This is quite the package from Action Electrical for your home, for yourself, or you can you'll be able to gift it to someone else. Connor told me that you had answered him offline that if you win, you're going to keep it, which is totally fine. So stay on the line, and Connor will get you all the information, and then you'll just have one final step to ensure that you get your name in the draw. 1 in a 20 chance. There's only 20 qualifiers, and somebody is going to win a brand new solar system for your home, valued at $15,000, courtesy of Action Electrical. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you very much. I listen all the time. I never text in, but today I texted that in. So
all right, there you go. Great, Dad. We love the loyal listeners. That's awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for texting.
All right.
Nice. I know there's lots of, by the way, we had lots of first-time texters, because we can tell, because if you text a show once, usually we have your name in the system. So for first timers, got a lot more. That's awesome. So we'll do that every day for the next 4 weeks here on Sports 1440 inside the Gregor Show. Usually we do it between 4 and 6 o'clock. Not always a set time, so be listening. I'll set you up in advance on when we're going to do it some nights. And that's a big prize pack, man. 15, and that's the 15,000. That's just for the installation. Never mind all the money you'll be saving once you have it put on. So it's going to be a huge, bit of a life changer for many of you. So think about it. If you want it for yourself, the final step is you will be sending in an email. We send you, then you got to fill out the email, the instructions. That gets you fully involved in the draw. Now, Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440. Terry Ryan, of course, also here. We are about 15 minutes away, 25 minutes away maybe from the puck drop on what is going to be now a win in your stay alive game in Washington, and Philly. Detroit has to win to stay alive as well. If any of those teams, well, obviously one of them is going to win tonight, but if Washington or Detroit win, Pittsburgh's out, because they can't catch them. They're automatically out. So the Penguins will be rooting heavily tonight. Think about it. The Penguins are rooting for the Flyers. When does that happen? In a playoff race. Let's get to 5 questions now, brought to you by The Brick, is Canada's biggest brands at Canada's smallest prices. LG, Samsung, Whirlpool, etc. You can save up to big bucks and more on select appliances. And what about mattresses starting at 149 bones right now at The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, guys, question number 1 for you today of the likely NHL playoff series that we're going to see in the first round. Is there one that you're looking forward to watching the most?
For me, it's already set. Winnipeg and Colorado. I'm excited to see that for many reasons. I think it's going to be great hockey, and 2 teams that have surprised me this year and are near the top of the pack. Really, really excited for that one.
I am a big believer in rematches. And the one right now, because of the loss last night, like Vegas, if you can't beat Anaheim and Chicago, then you don't deserve to be there. But honestly, Vegas, Edmonton, that's the series I want to see.
Question number 2, as we approach the final game at the Mullet Arena and the Arizona franchise as a whole, do you guys have a favorite memory involving the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes franchise?
TR, go ahead.
Me, I played a game there. Mike Gartner played in the midst of his 30-goal run. I think he had 14 or 15 years in a row. Met Keith Tkachuk that day. That's a good memory for me. As far as watching, no, I can't think of many major milestones or reasons that I've watched a Coyotes game and been thrilled. It was nice to play there.
Honestly, it's true, right? They haven't had a lot of success over time for the Coyotes, right? I guess I remember 2012. That would probably be it. I'd have to say the 2012 playoff run for the Coyotes when they won 2, but I can't think of one game or one big moment. Although maybe I will say this: the Alexander Ovechkin goal when he fell on his back, that was against the Coyotes. I will take that one because that's one of the most crazy goals I've ever seen from Ovechkin, and it happened against the Coyotes.
Yes. Good one. At question number 3, we saw the Sharks last night and just how bad they are. Do you want to see them get the number 1 overall pick in the lottery, or would you see it, or rather see it go somewhere else?
Well, you know what? We're talking to Steve Ellis early on. I think Macklin's I think he's getting underrated. They don't even have the date set, for God's sakes. And to me, do they not respect this draft? What the hell is going on? I think this kid's going to be pretty good. So, yeah, you know what? Sure, I will. Shark fans were very loyal for a long time, and now their team's garbage, and it has nothing to do with them. So sure, yeah, they being the worst team, they probably deserve to have the and the thing was, they weren't the worst team because they tried to tank. They tried to win and they sucked. Shows how bad that their organizations ran. So they're going to need a lot of good picks. They got William Smith's 1. This guy would be 2. They're going to need a lot more and probably have another top 3 pick next year. So sure, I'll say the Sharks.
I got no reason to be loyal to the Sharks. I like their jerseys. It's a fun little spot. California teams are always fun. But I'd probably want to say the Blackhawks. I think the bottom teams are so far at the bottom. They're years away. But the Blackhawks at least could build on having Bedard, much like teams that before them, like the Oilers, like the Blackhawks, like the Penguins. I like to have greatness surrounded by greatness, so I'll say Chicago.
Question number 4. Who are your picks to make the playoffs from the NBA playoff games getting going tonight?
Well, I would love to see the Lakers and the Warriors get in just for storylines. And I'm not even a huge LeBron fan when it comes to that Jordan versus LeBron thing. And I think he's a bit high and mighty on himself. There's lots of reasons, but I like him enough to know that he's a fantastic athlete. And I love watching him compete. I have to look at objectively and say, for him to do what he's doing at this age, each game that goes by that he impresses is astounding. And I think there's something to be said for that. Now, I'd love to see the Lakers get in for that reason. The Warriors, I've always been a huge fan of Steph Curry, the way he carries himself off the court and on the court. He's a very humble superstar. And as far as the East, I don't know. I'd like to see the Miami Heat get in. I think there's a lot of reasons to watch, and Butler can be lights out. I'm more married to the other idea, but I would it's going to be interesting with the 76ers and the Heat. I'd like to see the Heat get in.
Well, the 76ers have won 8 in a row. I think they're getting in. I think the Heat are going to get in. The Atlanta Hawks, this is why the play-in sucks. The Atlanta Hawks have lost 6 games in a row, and they're still finishing 10th because no one else was close. They lost 6 in a row to get into the last place. So whether them and the Bulls, whoever wins that game, they're going to get spanked by whoever loses between the 76ers and the Heat. So I'm going to say 76ers and Heat for sure. The West is a lot more competitive. You have 46-win teams, right? That the Warriors and the Kings, and I expect the Warriors to beat the Kings because the Kings are so banged up. But man, Lakers and Pelicans, I'm kind of torn there. Part of me would like to see the Lakers Warriors in a 1 game off. See, it's the final one. So I'm going to say the Pelicans go in because they haven't been in a long time. And then we're going to have Lakers, Warriors. And I'd love to see Steph knock out the Lakers. So I will say the Warriors and the Pelicans.
Final question for you guys today. On this day, it would have been the late, great silent film star Charlie Chaplin's birthday. I think most of his work is before all of our time as he passed away in 1977. So I want to ask you guys this. Do you have an actor, actress, anyone that was maybe a favorite of yours, but they were just before your time, like someone you didn't get to really appreciate while they were thriving?
So for me, I got to, I can go deep here. I'll stay on the surface. I'll try to. So I am into Charlie Chaplin. I did a film course in school, and a movie we did was called Modern Times, and it deals with like the man. And, the Industrial Revolution had just happened. You got to realize it was 20 or 30 years from all of that, and factories, well, the way we know them now, corporate power, kind of that. It's a very intriguing movie for that time. Of course, it's 1926, so you have to like block that part out, I guess, or at least accept it in that, things aren't going to be, the effects, and there's not even any talking, I don't believe, but it's a very moving picture. As far as actors, tell you, I watched one the other day called Suspicion. It's an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and James Stewart would be my favorite from back then, but I'm learning about Cary Grant. Now this, we said before I was born. This is way before. We're talking 40 years before I was born, but I watched the movie Suspicion, and then I watched a little documentary on him, a bio, and he was never afraid to laugh at himself. He was a very strong alpha male guy that, great looks and, the Humphrey Bogart style, like I said, Jimmy Stewart. But Cary Grant could really laugh at himself and showed a humility that other actors weren't willing to do. So I'm partial to him.
That's a good question, Con. So I probably would go only because my dad talked about him a lot, was Spencer Tracy. He won Best Actor. I think he might have won it back to back, but don't quote me on that. I'm not, I don't know. But he was a guy. My dad had introduced me a few of his movies, so I'm gonna go with Spencer Tracy. Cons, what about you?
Oh, for me, there's a few, but I think one that I did enjoy was John Belushi. We did Animal House for the movie watch a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I said it. I didn't know if it held up that great, but you could just tell. Like, he kind of had that star factor. He was so funny with the timing. And I would have him in there. Got a chance to see some of the old SNL skits too. So I'll say John Belushi for me.
Good call.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. TR, who you like to get the Flyers, the Capitals, the Penguins, or the Red Wings? Who are you taking?
Well, I really want the Penguins to pull it off. So I'm not a huge fan, but I'm a fan of Crosby. Who do I think's going to get in? Is a different story. Let's go. You know what? I can't say Washington. I just can't say it. I bet against them all year, and it's my instinct. But I will say Detroit.
Detroit City. All right, TR. Have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you later on.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Edmonton. I'll see you guys again in just a couple days.
There you go. That's Terry Ryan. Joins us Tuesday, Thursdays now on Sports 1440. And if you missed TR's rant, it's up at jasongregor.com. Connor has it on Spotify. Oh, my goodness, you're going to want to watch it. Go back. He was fired up today, and rightfully so. It was fantastic stuff. Let's get to the Con Man and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by High Street Insurance. We always like welcoming new clients to the show, right? Local company. Now they're across Canada, but their base is right here in Edmonton. So we love supporting local. They're driven by people, not products. They're people taking care of people for over 10 years, serving Canadian businesses just like yours. Go to highstreetinsurance.com.
The Sports 1440 update.
Eight games on the ice tonight in the NHL. Couple just getting going. Bruins, Sens, Red Wings in Montreal, Flyers, Capitals, Hurricanes, Blue Jackets at 5:30. Got the Maple Leafs in Florida to take on the Panthers at 6. Jets host the Kraken. Then at 8 o'clock tonight, Blackhawks in Vegas and the Canucks hosting the Calgary Flames. In the association, we've got play-in games, Lakers and Pelicans meeting in about 30 minutes. And at 8 o'clock tonight, it's the Warriors taking on the Kings. In the majors, the Blue Jays are in action, just about to get going as they take on the New York Yankees once again. A few games underway right now. In the third, the Orioles lead the Twins 3-0. Phillies up on the Rockies 2-0 in the second. And just heading into the third, Giants have a 1-0 lead over the Marlins. Angels and Rays still scoreless in the second. Still to come, Guardians take on the Red Sox. The Mets host the Pirates. Padres are in Milwaukee. Houston up against the Braves. Cubbies travel to the desert, taking on the Diamondbacks. Mariners host the Reds, and it's the Nationals and Dodgers. Earlier today, Tigers double up the Rangers 4-2. And Royals, White Sox postponed due to rain. In the AJ tonight, League Championship Game 3 goes at 7 o'clock down in Calgary. As Calgary leads Whitecourt 2-0 in that series. And later on this night in the WHL, the Blades taking on the Rebels. Saskatoon leads 2-0 in that series. You have Moose Jaw up against Swift Current. That series tied at 1 game apiece, and PG leads Kelowna 2-0. They meet just after 8 o'clock tonight. The Edmonton Elks have signed American defensive back Keyshawn Walker. He joins the club after spending last season with the San Diego Strike Force of the IFL. He appeared in 3 games, had 12 tackles and 2 interceptions. And 4-time Brier champion, also 4-time world champion, Glenn Howard announced his retirement from competitive curling earlier today. Coming up in hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show, we will be joined by Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet and Derek Van Diest from NHL.com. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR.
A Tuesday afternoon, Jason Gregor, Connor Halley. Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Some of you watching live on Twitter, streaming at sports1440.ca, the app. Man, it's great. So many places for you to listen and watch the show. It's fantastic. We love the interaction on the text line, on the chat rooms, on Facebook. It's awesome. So keep it up. 833-401-1440 in our email inbox. It is The Gregor Show at playalberta.ca, where tonight, get your tickets, $70 million. Lotto Max tonight, and 10 Max Millions. Woo! And by the way, you have 3 hours and left to get your tickets. Right, ends around 8:30 normally our time. So get in at playalberta.ca. Time now for the Spec Report as he's coming to us live at the, well, maybe not the Mullet Arena, but he's in Arizona. It's the Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction as they continue to roll through. It is a busy time of year, and hey, they need you. They're looking for good people, the good work ethic. Want to make some good cake. It's a great mix. Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction. Great company to work for as they celebrate their 50th year in the industry later this summer. Mark Spector joins us from where I'm guessing a little bit warmer in Arizona. Spec, how you doing?
Doing awesome, man. What's going on, Jay? It is warmer here for sure. It's nice and hot, sunny. Tempe, Arizona.
That's nice. Hey, we got to get you out of town more often. You go out of town, they're scoring 9 goals. Fantastic. No, I'm kidding, but I don't know if you were watching that game on your flight there or not, but oh my goodness, it was an absolute ass kicking last night for the Oilers against the Sharks. 9-1 after 40 minutes.
Yeah, I watched it when I got here. I was about an hour behind on it, and the Oilers were really good, and you could see that they saw in their opponent a team that there was no reason to panic with the puck against. They just kept passing and kept passing and kept passing. And the game was a constant ozone cycle for the Oilers. The Oilers were good. The other team was not of an NHL caliber, and that's what you get. Good team against bad team. You get a 9-2 hockey game.
Yeah, not ideal at all. The Oilers now, Spec, they still right now have something to play for, but they might not by tomorrow morning or later tonight if Vancouver's victorious over Calgary. But I'm not sure it's going to matter that much. Like, I could be wrong. Like, maybe they really want to finish first because you do have a home ice advantage. And if you feel you're going to win and Vancouver wins, then you want it. So, but I wonder how they approach here. We know that Broberg is going to join them in Arizona. Anybody else you think, or is it just going to be Broberg?
I think it's just going to be Broberg. There was a time, I'd say almost 3 weeks ago that Ken Holland was thinking aloud about maybe bringing up James Hamblin for a couple games because he's the one guy down there that they think that at some point they may have to use if they get some injuries. And Chris Knobloch has never had him play for him. He's had Gagne, right?
Well, wasn't Hamlin? No, Hamlin was here. He was here after Knobloch.
Okay. Anyhow, that was something Ken Holland said. He wanted to get Hamblin up for a few games. I have a feeling that's not going to happen now. So I sense, to me, it's Broberg. You're not going to upset your lineup. You're not bringing in 3. They don't have the cap space to bring in like 3 guys. So it's going to be Broberg, and I doubt we'll see more. What do you think?
Well, I was looking at their cap space because it's only 2 days, right? Like Broberg comes up and he's basically $9,000 against the cap is what he counts for 2 days. And so I do think they have room if they wanted to bring, like, it all depends. Like, so if they say to Evander Kane, you know what, we're going to give you another day off. You know what? I don't think McDavid's going to play back-to-back. I could be wrong. I know he loves playing, but maybe they won't. And, do they want to give Leon Draisaitl the rest? It all depends how many guys they want. Now, the thing was last night, nobody played more than 15 minutes. So last night's game was, 6-7 minutes less for some of those guys. It feels like a cakewalk, right? Like there's no stress in that game. It's not a mental stress game. It's not a physical stress game. And, like tomorrow night, I don't know, Spec, you're going to be there. Like, how emotional is this going to be? Like, I'm assuming it's going to be sold out. It's the last game at the Mullet Arena. And they've actually been in Arizona longer than the Jets were in Winnipeg. And I remember the goodbye in Winnipeg. Like, it was pretty emotional. That was only 18 years. This is 24. Like, what are you expecting tomorrow night? And do you think there'll be more juice in the building for the Coyotes because of it?
Yeah, there will be lots of juice. I was at practice this morning. It's an emotional time for these guys. It comes in subsets, Jay. Let's start with the players, the 20 players. These guys they're in this thing together. They just went through the West. They won in Vancouver. They won in Edmonton. They scored 5 in Calgary. They've shown that they can play through this thing, and they really want to end this thing. They're probably going out partying either way, but they want to go out with a win under their belt, right? After that game. Then it's all the people around the team that they're playing for. And there's this is a very resilient organization that's worked under a cloud of uncertainty forever. There's equipment guys like Stan Wilson that work for the old Jets that have been here every step of the way. A really revered unknown part of this group. So they're playing for a lot of people. Andre Tourigny he said, I've got to put a lot of thought into what I say to these guys before the game and how I'm going to say it and what I want to send them out there with. And so, yes, the fans here, they've been waiting for this game. Not waiting for it. They've been dreading it, actually. But it will be a very emotional game. It won't be an easy game for Edmonton. The other team's not rolling over. They're going to, if anything, there may be too much emotion in Arizona's game, but this will be a hard game for Edmonton to play. There's no easy 2 points tomorrow. I don't care what the standings tell you.
Yeah. No. Well, hey, and they've been actually playing quite well, right? They've been playing, and they beat the Oilers here. They beat the Canucks. They beat Vegas. So you're right. It won't be an easy game by any stretch of imagination. And I would think, though, that, that emotion will probably liven up the Oilers a little bit, especially if Vancouver loses tonight.
Oh, it can't hurt. Like a high emotion game is fun. That's what you want. It's a long season. And when you get games like this that have lots of juice to them, that's always good for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're the home team or the visiting team. You play better. You're more excited. I would say to you that if the Oilers don't, if they think they can play flat and win tomorrow, they are sorely mistaken. This Coyotes team, I'm not telling you they're a great team, but I'm telling you they're going to play this game a foot off the ground, okay? So either you compete with them and you have emotion with them, or they're going to steamroll you. I'm here to tell you, this is a big deal down here for this group of guys, and the Oilers are going to have a game in their hands tomorrow. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Mark Spector joins us on Sports 1440. Spec, the Dallas game obviously wasn't very good for the Oilers. That was their one game where they needed a reset. They didn't like their defensive game. Nurse wasn't very good in that game at all, and kind of finished up a run where he hadn't been very good. And I don't know what Paul Coffey said since, but since that game, like Nurse and Ceci specifically, like Darnell Nurse is, when he's on the ice, Oilers are outscoring the opposition 10-2. Ceci's 10-1. Nurse has played 107 minutes. Bouchard's played the most. He's played 108. Now Ceci missed a game, of course, but if you look at it, if the 17 minutes that Stetcher played, if we say Ceci would have played those minutes, and it's probably hard to argue that he wouldn't have, well, then he's up to 104. That Nurse Ceci pairing for me, Spec, when I look at important guys if they want to go anywhere, those two have to continue to play like this come playoff time. It's a must if they want to go anywhere in the playoffs.
Well, and let's look back a little bit here. That Dallas game was a 5-0 game. Third period, we throw in a garbage score effects. Score is 5-0. It's over. No one's trying. First period, Edmonton was the better team in that game, as I recall. They had the posts. I believe they outshot Dallas. They were the better team in my recollection. The second period, it evened out, and then Dallas scored. What did they score, Jay? Was it 3 goals in 5 minutes or 4 goals in 5 minutes?
I think so, yeah.
It was 4 goals in like 5:48. So did they play a terrible game or did they play a terrible period? So let's start there.
Yeah, the second period. But all my point is, I think Nurse played a very good game, is all I'm saying.
Sure, he was on for a bunch of them. And I mean, hey, listen, find me a team, show me one of the top 2 pairings. And if you say that pairing has to play well if this team's going anywhere, well, no kidding. These guys are getting ice time, man. Nurse and Ceci are 22-minute defensemen, right? You can't win if they're not good. Not in the playoffs. You can't win. So is it, and Nurse is a giant part of this team. I know there's some of our listeners out there that are trying to tell you he's no good and he's this and he's that. He's a giant part of this team, okay? In the room, out of the room, on the ice, killing penalties, blocking shots, toughness. He's huge. If he doesn't bring it, they don't win. You might not want to hear it, folks, but Nurse is a big part of this thing. And if he plays well, it's going to help him win.
Yeah, well, the point was, though, he had played very well for November, December, January under Block and Coffee. And then I thought after the All-Star break, Spec, for 7 weeks, he wasn't very good. You look like, especially the penalty kill numbers were off the charts terrible, right? You can't argue that. And so, but it looks like they've kind of, whatever the speed bump was, that was maybe a longer speed bump, they've gotten back on track. And if they continue it, well, that makes Edmonton a much tougher out. And I look at Nurse and Ceci, and as important as Bouchard and Ekholm, of course, but they've been more consistent all year, I guess is my point. So I don't, like, if they struggle, that would be a surprise to me, right? Because they really haven't struggled all year long. Whereas Nurse and Ceci, they had that 7-week stretch. They're switching up, they're trying D pairs. They're even trying, some lower minutes there for a time, and that's kind of gone a little bit by the wayside here now, where it's a little bit more even with your top end guys. But they need those guys to play well. And the thing is, Nurse is the best athlete of their defense. It's not close. And so they need him. He can dominate when he wants to. Like, it's not just the goals for. He's got 7 points at 5-on-5 in their last 6 games. Like, he's a guy who's been a top producer, not only defensively, but offensively 5-on-5 for a long time. And he doesn't really do it for a long time. So there's a guy that if they get him focused, I think a lot of people underestimate, and I agree with you, they underestimate how important he is to the team, but he also wasn't playing very well is what I'm trying to point out. And now he is, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I'll guarantee you this. Darnell Nurse wants this as much as any of them. He's an original here.
Yeah.
Right? Nurse is an original. They built this team around McDavid and Draisaitl and Nurse. And I think from there, they've branched out. Oh, he's an original dude and pillar on this team. You think he doesn't want to win? Like this guy, he's a lifetime Oiler the same way all those other guys are. We can all talk and guess and have our opinion on his strengths and weaknesses. And I got mine, believe me, and I've said it many times. But his will to win, his want to win, his to me, the one thing I have no question he'll give you his best hockey in the playoffs. You might tell me his best hockey is not enough, and I can't help you with that. But I think Nurse will give you the very best he's got every night because character isn't an issue with Darnell Nurse, right? You might have your issues when he rushes the puck. I hate the way he takes the offensive zone and passes it backwards. It makes me crazy. Okay, I'm here to tell you. But I never doubt Darnell Nurse's will to win, his leadership abilities, all that stuff. His intangibles are awesome.
Jason Gregor, Mark Spector here on Sports 1440. Spec, LA opened the door now for Vegas.
Oh, did they
Vegas, they got to beat LA. They got to beat Anaheim and Chicago. Now, Pittsburgh last year lost the playoff spot because they couldn't beat Chicago. So there's no guarantees that you're going to win. But I still, the players will tell you, hey, they want to face anybody. And the fact is, you don't know whoever you face, then you got to beat them. That's the truth. But I don't know, man. I'd like to see Edmonton, Vegas more than I'd like to see Edmonton, LA. So I'm kind of hoping that Vegas wins their final 2 games. And that means that Vancouver obviously beats Calgary and away you go. And then we have Edmonton and Vegas. Where do you come out on Vegas or LA, or should the Oilers really be hoping to play LA?
Well, I'm with you on I'll tell you this, NHL players don't waste any time on this. Jonathan Marchessault told me the other day, I was talking to him in the Vegas room. He says, the year we lost in the cup, he says, I was thinking about matchups and I thought the best team for us to play is Washington. We match up best with Washington. We don't want to play Tampa. He says, we got Washington. They beat us in 5.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you right now, folks, the guys inside the room, they don't talk about it. They don't care. Us outside the room, we talk about it all the time. So let's talk about it. It's my thinking that you've beaten LA twice, beat them again. It does nothing for you except for advances you to round 2. It might be an easier series because they're LA, they're not Vegas. I'll give you that. But in my mind, if you play Vegas and you beat Vegas, that's a springboard that launches you into a playoff run that the LA Kings cannot provide the Oilers. I think they should play, given a choice, my choice, play Vegas. And listen, if you can't beat them, I said this morning to Kevin, you can't beat them, pick up your golf clubs and get out of here because you're not going anywhere, right? Beat Vegas, take your springboard in to play Vancouver. Vancouver is going to look easy next to Vegas. And from there you go.
Hard to argue with that. Spec, enjoy Arizona. We will chat with you tomorrow as the Mullet Arena will host its final NHL game.
Going to see the mighty Cubs tonight, Jay.
Oh, they're in town. Oh, nice.
They happen to be in town. Yeah.
Oh, well, enjoy the beer and the hot dog, Spec. You might need a few to drown your sorrows.
All right, Jay. Have a great night.
There you go. That's Mark Spector. The Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. Where do you come out on that? You know what? You want to win, you got to beat the best. And the defending champs, in theory, are the best from last year, although they're not playing like the best right now. I would be honestly, I just kind of want to see it. I just think it would be more exciting. The LA Kings, you kind of know how they're going to play, and it's kind of boring at times. Like, I don't know. There's something more intriguing for me than Vegas and Edmonton. But again, Vegas has to beat Anaheim and Chicago. And as shown last year, all Pittsburgh got to do is win one of the games and they go to the playoffs. They didn't do it. So there's no guarantee there at all. So, and Edmonton still does have a chance if Vancouver loses tonight. Then the Oilers beat Arizona. Then you come down to on Thursday, Edmonton, Colorado, Winnipeg, Vancouver. Could decide home ice for both of those, all 4 of those teams in different series. Quick break. We'll come back. Derek Van Diest will join Jason Gregor on the Gregor Show on Sports 1440, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. This is, I don't know if you're watching the Columbus game or not, but one of the greatest names in the NHL right now. He's playing in his first NHL game tonight. And he scored on his first shot in the NHL. Luca Del Bel Belouz. Every time I hear that name, all I thought about was Bell Biv DeVoe. Oh my God. It's if Columbus doesn't have some sort of Bell Biv DeVoe song for him, what are we doing? What are we doing? You're missing out on that. Is unbelievable. So Del Bel Belouz scores on his first shot, and the Jackets. That's a nothing game. The Hurricanes are locked in second place. They're taking on the Islanders, and they're trailing 2-1 in that game. The Montreal Canadiens, Penguins fans, you're happy. They're leading 1-0. Alex Newhook, his 15th of the season in a must-win game for the Detroit Red Wings. Flyers and Capitals midway through the first period, no score. There is a Maple Leafs and Panthers game tonight that has some pretty big playoff implications, depending on if the Panthers win that game. Because if they win and then the Bruins lose their next game, the Panthers finish first, and then they will play Tampa, and Boston will play Toronto. So we'll see. For Oilers fans, Vancouver, the late game tonight, they're hosting the Flames. If the Canucks don't get a point in the game, so they lose in regulation, then the Oilers still have a chance to finish first. But if they win or lose in regulation, then the Oilers are destined to be second place. And the Golden Knights could be an opponent, hosting the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440 as we welcome to the show our regular Tuesday contributor, as we have Derek Van Diest join us, our big guest of the day, brought to you by Silent Ice Sports and Entertainment, an innovative market leader in sports. They got the Seattle Thunderbirds, of course, the Spruce Grove Saints, the Junior Prospects Hockey League, and much, much more. That's Silent Ice Sports and Entertainment. DVD joins us. DVD Spec says he thinks the Oilers should want Vegas. Where do you come out on a first round opponent, which it's Vegas, LA, or even technically still Nashville? What say you?
Well, just to be selfish, I want it to be in Los Angeles because I was hoping maybe to catch a Dodgers game if I'm down there for 3 or 4 days. But I kind of agree with Spec. You have to beat everybody. The only thing I think that maybe the Oilers would want LA is because they know exactly what they're going to get in LA. They know exactly their opponent. They know exactly the way the opponent's going to play. They've been able to kind of master this game against LA, so they feel very confident going in LA. Yeah. Vegas, does Vegas get everybody back game one of the playoffs? Like, does Mark Stone make your miraculous return? Is Carrier back? Are all those guys back? And I think that's kind of an unknown with Vegas. Obviously, Stone is skating again. Will he be ready for the playoffs? No one seems to know. So that's a bit of an unknown because they've gone through a lot of injuries this year. They played really well at the beginning of the season, didn't play so well in the middle, are playing a little better now at the end. But I think there's an unknown there. There's an unknown factor. And I agree that the Oilers will be very, very motivated to beat Vegas, very, very motivated to kind of, get another shot at this team because I think they want to get another shot at this team. But it's the devil you know or the devil you don't. And I think that's the situation right now with the Edmonton Oilers. And to be honest, to me, it doesn't seem like first place is that big a deal for them right now. So if the Canucks win today, they expect the Canucks to win today. Then they can have a couple of days to prepare for the playoffs. But to me, it's pick your poison. I think they're both going to be tough opponents. It's tough to beat the same team 3 times in a row in the playoffs because they just try and eventually you get figured out. But I do think that the Oilers feel very, very comfortable playing that methodical game that the LA Kings play. And I think they'll go into that series very, very comfortable, very, very confident. Vegas, on the other hand, you're still not even sure what their lineup's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure what LA would figure out. They play the same style. Like Drew Doughty even said, this is our style. It goes, I wish we'd actually play a different style, but we don't. And away you go. I guess for me, selfish, I'm like, it's kind of boring, some of those games. So I'd rather see Edmonton and Vegas if I could. And I think that, the Oilers, you beat Vegas because now Vancouver can't play LA. That's the thing, because Nashville would have the tiebreaker over LA. So because LA gives Vancouver fits. Like the Canucks are probably fist pumping right now that they're not going to have to play LA, because they have had no answer to that patient game, and they're just not capable of playing it. At least they haven't shown so far. Now maybe they change and they could in the playoffs, but I think if you're a Canucks fan, you're happy that it's either going to be you're going to play Nashville or well, I think that's well, I guess there's still a chance they could play Vegas in a weird tiebreaker. If there's a 3-way tiebreaker, I think that's the only way it could happen. So we'll see. But looking, last night Oilers dominate that game. I'm not sure you can take much out of it, because the Sharks are just so bad. Like, it's good, Fogle scored twice and Henrique scored and Holloway had his first. Like, that's great. Guys build some confidence, but I'm not sure I take much to say, okay, now this is a line we can use against the playoff team, because the Sharks, like, there's no team further from the playoffs than the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, that was an American Hockey League team they beat last night. And then, they score 53 seconds into the game, and the Sharks have checked out. I thought they'd have a bit more fight in them, but they've checked out. They don't have a goaltender. They threw the kid in after it was 8-1. It was just, yeah, you're right. All that game is don't get hurt. Don't pick up an injury. The Sharks aren't going to put up much of a fight. They're waiting. They're looking at next season already. They've checked out mentally. I know they've had a really, really tough season out in San Jose. But I think, that you can't take much out of the game. The only thing that could have come out of that game is you develop a bad habit here or there. You start cheating a little bit for offense. It's point night, so guys are like, okay, let's go. It's point night. It was Apple night. There was a lot going on there. I think it was great that McDavid got his point. I think that was a very exciting part of the evening. There's a lot of kids in the stands last night, the last game of the year, so they got to see a lot of goals. I think, but that's a game that, kind of like when you get beat really bad and everything goes wrong, you just throw it away, park it. When you beat a team really bad and they're just not into it, and they just were checked out, you just go throw away and park that game too. You don't worry about it. I think right now, even Connor McDavid said last night, they're in playoff mode right now. They're focused on the playoffs. That game didn't matter. And you know what? It's quite possible the next 2 games don't matter either. Just get through them. Don't get hurt. And let's focus on the playoffs. That'll start sometime next week.
Yeah, well, Sunday or Monday, I know the Oilers are pushing hard for Monday because obviously they get the extra day's rest. And it's going to come down to a TV schedule. There might just be 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, and then 4 on Monday and Tuesday. We'll see. But I know the Oilers, are pushing for it. And, we'll kind of see what comes out of it. So, the Eastern teams end a little bit earlier. So you could just have 2 Eastern games on Saturday and 2 Eastern games on Sunday if they wanted. Now, if you're the Nashville Predators, you're probably not loving that, because they were done yesterday. I don't think they want a week off, right? Like, I think the magic number for teams is like 3 or 4 days off, and then that's the most they want. I don't think they want to get into the 6 or 7 days off.
No, the week is a long time, and I think a lot's going to depend on obviously building availabilities. You look at the Crypto.com Arena; that's one of the busiest buildings in the world. They have like 300 and some acts there every day. They got 3 teams playing out of there, so I think that's going to determine. I think if the Oilers play the Kings, then they look at that schedule and they say, okay, when are the Kings available to play? The Oilers building is wide open, with the exception of Saturday. I think there's a concert here on Saturday, so from Sunday on, they're open. So I think that's going to play a part. Vegas, same way. Vegas, that's a busy building. The T-Mobile Arena is a busy building. So, but it'll be interesting to see how the league wants to play this first round. Like if they play 2 on the Saturday, 2 on the Sunday, would they go 2 on the Monday, 2 on the Tuesday? It's interesting to see how they would kind of play out. Usually they play the 4 games, and that makes it exciting. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out the first game of the series and move on from there. But I think obviously building availability has a big thing to do with it. I know the Oilers would love to start Monday, then you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, I think. But it'll depend on who their opponent is, and all we know is that the Oilers are going to play the first 2 games here at home, and then whether they're traveling to Vegas or they're traveling to Los Angeles, that is yet to be determined.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, right? And then you have to look at arena availability, especially if they play the Kings, because there's so much going on there. The Clippers, the Lakers could be in the playoffs still. You know, they got their playing games here coming up. So we'll see what happens there. And then there's obviously lots of concerts. So, although, now Edmonton, I know, moved a concert last year. So keep that in mind because people are always asking about concerts. And I looked at, I don't think they'll have any major issues, but, when you go, I haven't looked that far ahead. As far as 3 rounds or anything like that, but
no, I don't think they booked much. They're anticipating a long playoff run, so I don't think they booked much. I remember in 2006, I think they had Dora the Explorer coming in here or something like that,
yes.
and they just Dora go away because I think it was Game 5 or Game 6 or something like that in the Stanley Cup final, and then they just told Dora, "Sorry, Dora, you can't have the building anymore." But I think they look at that and they go, "Okay, they're expecting a long playoff run, so I don't think they've booked a lot here May and June at Rogers Place."
Hey, DVD, do you have, Connor asked me this question. I really had to think about it. Do you have a memorable moment involving the Coyotes franchise, which will be put on ice tomorrow night?
Oh, that's a good question. A memorable moments, Coyotes franchise. You know what? My memorable moments, I guess, when it involves the Arizona, they were the Phoenix Coyotes back then, was the first time I went to their old arena, the whatever it's called now. I think it changed names like 4 or 5 times. It was built in the middle of Glendale. There was nothing out there. And I remember first time I was out there, I was on the bus, and then we're driving. It was kind of like the first time I went to Ottawa. There's nothing out there. Then all of a sudden, the football stadium pops out, and then the hockey stadium is next door. And I just remember it was like there's 2 massive stadiums and absolutely nothing out here. I was like, why would they build these stadiums out in the middle of nowhere? Like, who's going to come out here to watch these games? They've since developed that area a little bit because the time to come back. But that's the one thing I remember is like the first time going out there, just driving for like 40 minutes out of town. I think we were in Phoenix, just driving. We're like, where is this stupid arena? And I think even some of the players are like, where is this thing? And then the big football stadium, because it was built like a spaceship. It came out. We saw the football stadium.
Oh, buddy, I loved it.
And then the arena is right next to it. But yeah, that's got to be my only real memory of the Arizona. I can't really remember much. I was at the old stadium a few times. I never made it to the one in the 5,000 seater. Never made it to that one. Yeah, the Mullet Arena. I never made it to that one. But yeah, that's what I remember. And I do remember that area was developed, and then every time we'd go down there, there'd be something new. There'd be a mall, there'd be a bar, there'd be a hotel. So I saw it kind of grow in my time going there. And then there was I remember watching a Super Bowl. The Oilers were in Arizona when the Super Bowl was being played somewhere else, but I remember in that area people were watching the Super Bowl. So those are Arizona. They really not much happened in that franchise, and they tried hard. They tried. They can't say they didn't try to make it work there. They went through a bunch of different owners. It wasn't working, and I think after a while you just they get strung along, and someone else comes along. You know what? Sometimes you just cut your losses and let's move on.
Yeah, you have to. DVD, good stuff, buddy. We'll chat with you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
There you go. That's Derek Van Diest from NHL.com. Covers the Oilers, Flames, Canucks, and the Jets. So he's got 3 teams covered for the first round of the NHL playoffs. We'll take our final break of the show. Come back. We got a lot of texts to get to. 833-401-1440 in our E-Well inbox.
You see their crews working, in some cases blocking traffic.
Nine. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for joining us, watching live on Twitter as well, streaming at sports1440.ca. Man, it's been a busy show. If you missed TR's rant in the 3 o'clock hour, you can get anywhere you get the podcast. That's hour number 2, or you have it up at jasongregor.com. It was an epic rant by TR. For Terry Ryan. I would highly, highly recommend it if you're a hockey fan. I think you'll enjoy it. Lots of text to wrap up the show. It is presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Hey, boys, the NHL needs to have a marketable ending to the season. Every year it should end on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Playoffs start Saturday. All 32 teams play in the final night. Line up some rivalries. Make it like the last hurrah of the season. Make it a big event. From Brad. Brad, you know what? I don't mind that idea. I do think it would be a scheduling challenge, no question, but you could look at it. Now, the one thing I think the NHL would be leery of is, well, we've got 16 games on a weeknight. What if 3 or 4 of them are really impactful, but they're going on at the same time? So I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'm guessing from a marketing standpoint, that's what they look at, right? We did see a few Saturdays this year where all 32 teams played. I thought it was great. I would do that. I think that would be their concern, because tonight, you know what? You do have the Detroit-Montreal game, and then you have the Philly-Washington game. That's 2, but now maybe you'd never have any. That's the other argument. So I can see it both ways, but I don't mind that idea, right? Or maybe you just have it for 2 nights, right? You could do like half the teams, all 16 Eastern teams play on the Tuesday, all 16 Western teams play on the Wednesday, then the East, although you can't just have all the East teams play on one day, but like 1 extra day's rest isn't going to make it or break it. They have that every year. So that I could see. Might not be a bad issue, or it's half and half, because I guess East-West, you're going to want some early games and late games on both nights, but I don't mind it. Hey guys, what do you think of Kane being part of the Oilers at the start of next season? From Suitcase. Good question. Well, they're going to have shed some salary in the offseason, right? Like, I think it's going to be hard for them to re-sign Fogle. That'll be one. Yeah, could I see a guy making $5+ million on this team be moved out? I could. So yeah, there's a possibility for sure. I think, like anything, what happens in the postseason will impact it. And I will say this: if the Oilers win the Cup, then if you look to move a player, now he's a Cup champion, all of a sudden his value goes up. That's just how it is. Right? Guys value Stanley Cup champions. They just do. Manny D of Bills Mafia says, hey boys. They have now Diljit Dosanjh. I don't know if I said that right, so my apologies. He's a huge Punjabi actor. He's sold out. He's coming on May 6th. Yeah, well, having the concerts one night is not going to be a big deal, right? Like if it's May 6th, you play on May 5th, or you play on May 7th, right? Or maybe you're on the road at that point, so it might not matter. But it's just, you don't want, like, Edmonton rarely has like multiple nights in a row of concerts booked, right? It happens, but they do try to leave some days available, especially, you know, Edmonton thought, hey, there's a good chance we could go at least 2 rounds, right? So that doesn't surprise me. There'll be some concerts, just not a whole bunch. Hey, guys, doesn't Kane have a no movement clause? I think, let me double. I thought it was a no trade clause, or it's a limited no move clause. I don't think it's a full no movement clause. Maybe he does have a full one. Let's see. Yeah, his modified one doesn't begin until next year, March 1st. So yeah, that might make it more challenging to move in the offseason. But you know what? Guys can always move. It just means he has more of a say in where he wants to go. So that's what happens. But you know what? We've seen guys with no movement clauses get traded before. It could happen again. Have yourselves a great Tuesday. Enjoy the games. We'll see if the Oilers have something to play for tomorrow or not. And maybe they'll know. If Vegas loses tonight, they could know who their first-round opponent is as well. On behalf of Connor and Struds and TR, I'm Jason Gregor. Let's get to Connor and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Booster Juice. Try the new Strawberry Blush Smoothie. Sip, blush, and savor as you fall in love with this new flavor only at Booster Juice. Good.
The Sports 1440 update.
8 games on the ice tonight in the NHL. Start off the Capitals with a 1-0 lead over the Flyers after 20 minutes. Alexander Ovechkin with his 31st of the season. The Red Wings and Canadiens tied at 1 apiece. Leafs lead the Panthers 1-0. Jackets up on the Hurricanes 3-2. And the Sens Bruins currently scoreless. Later tonight, Jets take on the Kraken. The Vegas Golden Knights hosting Chicago Blackhawks and the Flames in Vancouver. In the association, playing games underway. Right now, the Pelicans lead the Lakers 25-21. 3 minutes left in the first quarter. Winner of this one will advance into the NBA's playoffs. The loser takes on the winner of the Kings and Warriors, who meet tonight at 8 o'clock. In the majors, the Jays are in action. Midway through the third, they trail the Yankees 1-0. Elsewhere, Angels up on the race 3-1. Giants and Marlins tied at 2 apiece. The Rockies trail the Phillies 2-0. And the Orioles beating up on the Twins 8-1 in the bottom of the fifth. Later tonight, the Astros taking on the Braves. Diamondbacks host the Cubs. The Reds take on the Mariners. Athletics hosting the Cards. And the Nationals in Los Angeles taking on the Dodgers. Earlier today, Tigers double up the Rangers 4-2. AJ Championship Series game number 3 goes tonight down in Calgary. Calgary taking on Whitecourt, leading that series 2-0. And in the WHL, 3 games all playoffs. Saskatoon taking on the Red Deer Rebels down in Red Deer. They lead that series 2-0. Broncos Warriors meeting in Swift Current. That series tied at 1 game apiece. And Kelowna hosting PG. Cougars up 2-0. The Edmonton Elks making a move today, signing American defensive back Keyshawn Walker. He spent time in the IFL last season with the San Diego Strike Force, recording 12 tackles and 2 interceptions. And curling great Glenn Howard announcing his retirement earlier today. He won 4 Briars and was a 4-time world champion. That'll do it for us here on the Jason Gregor Show. We've got Fox Sports Radio coming up at 9 o'clock tonight. Then Carius and Douglas back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
This is Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the